It's time for Mac Break Weekly. Andy, Renee, Alex, they're all here. First thing we got to do is talk about this rumor that the next iPhone is going to use satellites for communication. I think we figured out what's really going to happen. We'll talk about that. The debate over the App Store and how poorly it treats developers. What do you do? How do you fix it? We've got some solutions there. And then we'll talk about something both Andy and I are both excited about and a little worried about. Apple just bought a big streaming classical music service. It's all coming up next, and a lot more on Mac Break Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
This is Mac Break Weekly, episode 781, recorded Tuesday, August 31st, 2021. Reball My Ploopy. Mac Break Weekly is brought to you by AT&T Active Armor. We rely so much on our phones these days, and we're always on them. Whether it's live streaming content, catching up with family on weekly video calls, or watching your favorite podcast, there's no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/activearmor for details. And by CashFly. Give your users the seamless online experience they want. Power your site or app with CashFly's CDN and be 30% faster than the competition. Learn more at twit.cashfly.com. It's time for Mac Break Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Apple. Alex Lindsay, a.k.a. 24/7 Office Hours, is here from
Technically,
Media.
office hours is only 2 hours a day. Well, 3 with the pre-show. And then after hours is the other 21 hours.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you say, buddy. I'm just glad you take a couple hours out of every week to join us. OfficeHours.global, in case you want to see the rest of Alex Lindsay's life. He streams it. Pretty soon it's gonna be like Justin TV, right? Where it's always on.
Well, the funny thing is that about when I'm not on obviously when I'm not here, but most of the time when I'm working, I have it now just playing out of some speaker. Yeah. I'm not streaming it. It's just in Zoom for background.
Yeah.
But it's just playing because people are just discussing technical things.
You should sell. What you need is an Office Hours television set that doesn't do anything but play Office Hours, and you can sell it.
Dedicating a whole Mac Mini to it, just a Mac Mini.
Exactly.
They're over there, and I can just lean over and
you can sell
the problem
that.
Yeah. Only one. We need
Raspberry Pi would be enough. That's actually what John does, right? John, you stream Twit 24/7 at home through a Raspberry Pi. Also here, Mr. Andy Iannacco from WGBH in Boston. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, I'm almost done with my pitch deck for the Milton Bradley Office Hours board game. It's like hours of fun for the entire family, ages 8 to 80.
And you flip it over, and you can play Mancala. So it's perfect. It's like it's everything you need for home entertainment. We're
trying to license the Pop-O-Matic technology because we think that any forward-thinking show like this needs to have the Pop-O-Matic technology.
Absolutely. Also from Canada and YouTube fame, Renee Ritchie at youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. Hello, Renee.
Hello, Leo. I'm doing like 3 videos in a row about how everyone's wrong about the new iPhone. And the nice thing is I can start one and then watch Office Hours and then finish one. And I can see Alex has finished cutting the steak by then. And then I can do another video and he's grilling the steak. And it's a wonderful companion.
Everybody's wrong about Office Hours. I mean, no, about the iPhone 13.
That'd be a great video.
Yes.
It is the season for fun and mischief.
By the way, breaking news, Windows 11 comes out October 5th. Oh, wait a minute. Wrong show. Sorry about that.
Why not October 11th? But why wouldn't they do October 11th? It would be so perfect.
What are they such a hurry for?
Windows 11.
Did you see that they're going to require that Windows 11 PCs have cameras?
November is number 11, by the way.
Oh, yeah. It could be 11/11. But then that's Memorial Day. So I don't know. All right. Let's talk about Leo. Low, which is my favorite kind of satellite, low Earth orbit.
It's our second favorite, Leo.
After
another reason to hate Elon Musk. Thank you for ruining our stargazing.
So this rumor is a cray-cray rumor, although Mark Gurman kind of confirmed it and denied it at the same time this week. Apple's iPhone 13, which anybody get an invite yet? No.
Not yet. It's too early.
If you got it tomorrow, that would be for the 8th. I think it's going to be the 12th, right? The second Tuesday in September, right?
That or the week after, one of those two.
The 19th, even that late? Okay. In any event.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
It's 2020 Junior, Leo. We have no idea.
We have no idea. Yeah, they did in October last time, right?
Yeah.
So it could be the 8th because they don't want to do it the day after Labor Day, or it could be the 14th because that's the following Tuesday, or it could be the 21st because COVID. Or the 28th.
Or what would be a good ship date for the phone, and how early would they want to get them out? So.
Although I have seen
it's a virtual event.
Some rumors, some retail leaks that say you'll be able to order on the 17th, which would indicate a 14th event date.
And the 24th for a launch day, which would be 10 days after.
Yeah. That would all be kind of. So I'm going to put my my bingo marker on 14, and we'll just see.
But carriers often just put in placeholder dates. They don't get a date from Apple. Apple's very careful about giving those kinds of things to carriers.
Right.
So they just put their best guess in there, and then people see it.
So they're doing the same thing we're doing. Yeah. But I guess we should talk about Gurman's article first, because he agrees that there probably will be this new Qualcomm chip in the new iPhone for this year, which we think will be the iPhone 13. That will give you satellite.
Made a huge mistake.
Yeah, Woming Chi said that it will work on spectrum owned by Global Star. Well, some have said your new iPhone will work with satellite networks just as well as with cellular networks.
I think he yada-yada'd it.
Right.
Gurman is saying it's going to be for emergencies when you don't have, which would make a lot of sense for Apple to kind of slowly roll this out.
But I think he yada-yada'd a whole paragraph out of his thing, because he has like this one part that everyone glommed onto that said Apple, Qualcomm is working on the N53 band, and they're working with Global Star on this. And then there's a period, and I see a black cat walk across his whole article, and then he says, and this is all satellite technology. And Global Star actually does like several different things. They're a huge company. They do like hundreds of different things, agriculture, but they have a terrestrial technology and a celestial technology. The terrestrial technology is band 53, which they managed to get, and they have an LTE version and a 5G version, and it's often used as like a carrier or aggregate signal for 5G in general, and there's been rumors for a year now that Apple is going to incorporate that as a way of making their 5G package better. And then Global Star also does the satellite stuff that includes the ability to make transponder-like features for emergency messaging and for disaster signaling. And yes, it is easy to believe that Qualcomm would do a special version of an N60 modem that preloads band 53 for Apple, because everyone else is getting it with the X65 modem, but that is completely separate from the ability to receive, let alone send satellite signals, which is probably 2 iPhones from now.
Stock market believed the rumor. Global Star stock went up 64% yesterday.
It'll be here eventually.
Well, the stock market is always weird, because if you're an analyst, if you're working in the stock market, a lot of it is not what reality is, but how are people going to react to panicking about what the reality might be.
Exactly.
So, and this is both an interesting rumor and a non-interesting set of analysis by most people that I've seen so far, Renee excluded, of course, because the fact that it might have bandwidth that is associated with an LEO satellite does not mean a satellite phone. It could mean that this is a band that, as Renee said, is very useful for packaging a lot of different wireless services together, a lot of different access together. It's possible that it is in preparation for a service that is being planned that has not even been announced yet and might not even be available for the next couple of years. But it makes sense to say, well, if we don't want our entire phone lineup to be obsoleted the day that we ship it, let's have there are a whole bunch of phones that have the ability to receive FM radio signals, because that's the chip they bought. They just don't activate it. So there's a lot of wait and see regarding this.
Gurman's cold water on this, I think, seems to me to be the accurate take on it.
Yeah.
He said that Apple's plan is initially more limited in scope, according to the person he talked to, with the focus on helping consumers handle crisis scenarios. Of course, Apple has no comment. The first component, Gurman says, is dubbed emergency message via satellite. Users can text emergency services and contacts over a satellite network where there's no cell signal available. You know, we're in the middle of massive fires here in the West, including in Tahoe, and of course that would be hugely valuable. It's kind of like those spot watches where you're hiking, you're away from anything.
And there's a lot of parts of California that if you go up, especially if you're driving up the one, that you just don't have any cell service at all. You know, your phone can tell you where you are, it just doesn't know where that is. Yeah. And so, so the thing is that GPS information and being able to send that GPS information back out. And we've seen things like this with Garmin's and so on and so forth that you take when you're in kind of really in the in the outer edges of the wilderness, where it's constantly being able to update where you're at, so that people that can find you if you suddenly stop communicating. So I think that there's a lot of times when we think about hikers or other folks that have been lost and everyone's looking for them, with this kind of service, as long as you keep the battery going, people will know where you're at theoretically. So I think GPS may be some of the most
right. Exactly. Yeah. It's really. I think Renee, I did see I think one of your videos on this that I really liked how succinctly you put it. That every phone has a GPS radio in it, but it's easy to receive a satellite signal. It is very difficult to transmit a signal back up to a satellite. And if you want one of those, you're going to have to be accepted with, hey, why do I have this big rubber thumb stuck to the top of my beautiful, elegant iPhone Pro? Well, that's because you wanted a phone that could talk to a satellite, even in emergency services. So this is why I'm really not putting any bets on the table for this one, because the antenna problem is so difficult to solve. Even if you choose a very narrow set of rules, set of features for any kind of a satellite service to be providing, that I mean, you could think of, well, maybe it's there so that if you want to stick this into a sled that provides a better external antenna, then it could actually activate that way and be a very inexpensive add-on device. But then you would say the people that would actually use this sort of stuff, why not put all the electronics into that sled and just use the iPhone as a UI? Or why not buy a bespoke device that is designed specifically for emergency services like that? So it's very hard to predict what this kind of technology could practically be used for without a massive redesign of what we expect an iPhone to look like.
Thanks to Scooter X in our chat room. Here's a list from REI, the camping store, of the different kinds of kind of emergency locators. There's PLBs, which are personal locator beacons. They're not for texting. They just send a signal along with your location saying, I'm in trouble. You can't send text. You can't do anything like that. That, by the way, look at the size of these. I mean, it clearly doesn't need to be some fancy Dan thing. Yeah. When you get to the satellite messengers, though, see those antennas?
They look like a Trio 680.
They're big clunky things. These allow you two-way texting. Same idea. So Gurman's rumor is oddly concrete. He says the feature will be integrated into the Messages app as a third protocol alongside SMS and iMessage, and appear with gray message bubbles instead of green or blue. The second feature will be a tool to report major emergencies such as plane crashes, sinking ships. I hope I don't ever have to use
red
this.
So you can see the emergency.
Yeah,
using. I missed that message. It was gray. It was interface gray, like Alex's walls. Can we just make it red?
The texting via satellite tool is codenamed Stewie inside Apple. Again, oddly specific. Yes. I've been whipped. Will restrict messages to a shorter length. The texts will automatically push through to an emergency contact's phone, even if the Do Not Disturb setting is on. One planned design will let a user send the message by typing emergency SOS, where they would usually input a contact name. That seems like an awful lot to type in an emergency. Now, he also points
contact
out
name Scooter.
Scooter X emergency SO. He also says, and the most important thing is, these are things Apple is looking at, but unclear whether they would ship it.
Yeah, I think Quo just conflated Band 53, which is something that they could ship today, with the satellite messaging, which is something that's going to take years. And they both happen to work with Global Star, so it's understandable but not forgivable that we conflate those things.
It is the case that Global Star said it had signed an agreement with an unidentified party to develop a new service. So that's why people in the stock market are going.
And they have a press release out saying that Qualcomm is integrating them into the X65 modem for Band 53. And so again, it's easy to think they'll put them in X65.
And we should also point out that this makes Qualcomm look very, very good at a time when when a lot of major manufacturers are very much eyeing developing their own modem chips and not becoming dependent on Qualcomm at all. So any leak that happens to get out of Qualcomm to say, oh, well, gosh, we hope that people don't find out that we're providing fundamental technology that Apple is thinking about putting into every single iPhone ever for the next 2 or 3 years, because it would send our stock price shooting up high, and we wouldn't want that to happen, would we?
The most important paragraph, of course, in Gurman's piece says, and though the next iPhone could have the hardware needed for satellite communications, the features are unlikely to be ready before next year, said another person who has not to be identified because the plans aren't yet public. The features could also change or be scrapped before they're released. Mark's actually got that. I think he's got that attached to a single keystroke on his computer
that reads
now.
Like Bloomberg to me. Like you can always tell the article what Mark wrote and what Bloomberg.
Yeah. But it is always the case that what you hear is what Apple's thinking about, but not necessarily what Apple's going to release.
And Apple,
but it's also late. Like Apple's decided this stuff. Like they plan their phones 2 years out. It's like the rumors surface like 6 months later, like echoes of decisions Apple has already made sometimes.
Well, and they've already put hardware. They often have put hardware in place that the software can't support or even looks at yet.
Yeah.
So that they can utilize it later. So
can you give what's an example of something like that?
The U1 chip for a long time.
You didn't use UWB initially. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, Renee, what's your take? Will we see this in 2 weeks? Will they be talking about it, or will there be not a word?
I think I don't think Apple will talk about it because it's internal technology, and I think again they're going to use. There was an old Reddit post from a year ago that said Apple's going to use Band 53 as an aggregation point for the rest of their RF spectrum, and that kind of stuff is utterly believable to me. But nobody cares. Like most people don't care about how the radio in their phone works. It's just, does it work better? Yes, great. Yeah. I'm not dropping as many calls, so that part of the thing makes a lot of sense to me, and that can be a whole Global Star deal on one side of it with Qualcomm, and then the rest of it, Apple's been building out these features. Like from Apple Watch through Health to the iPhone, like the gait measurement they're doing now, that was Apple Watch exclusive. Now it's an iPhone feature. Apple Watch has great emergency features, but they're bound to cellular. If the iPhone can do that even one better, that makes total sense as a continued growth of Apple's emergency contacting features.
So the highfalutin notion that I had that Apple might want to avoid carriers entirely and go straight to satellite, that's probably not going to happen.
No.
Well, there's a rumor they're making their own satellites too. Like that was rumored 2 years ago. They have a whole team working on satellites the way that Elon Musk does and China's satellite does. And
hey, if you want to own the whole stack, you would love to get rid of these carriers who are
We don't need usable Sky, do we? I mean,
I think you have issues around latency that are still going to come up with satellite. So it's not. It's good for some, like text is a great example.
But for phone calls,
really
not
but
so
phone
much.
calls, you'll notice it.
Yeah.
Anybody who communicated with space, you'd have you have it takes a little while to get there. Even on low late, even Musk's solution is still higher latency than what we're used to.
Right.
Yeah. So that's still going to be a challenge, and so I think that Apple, it's just a really sticky. Taking care of people's cell connections and all that, they'd have to just buy somebody to do that.
That'd be a better way to do it. Yeah.
Buy Global Star or buy Starlink.
No, but but they have to buy.
Buy T-Mobile, buy AT&T,
buy T-Mobile. Buy.
But that only solves it for one country. Like they'd have to buy a carrier in every major market.
That's right. Oh, what a nightmare.
That's why. And in a lot of ways, I probably half the time, for some reason, my cell coverage is not very good with anything in my house, and it's just always a problem. And so I'm using Apple. I just hold down on the audio button, like to call someone. I just hold down and go down to Apple FaceTime audio all the time. Like I just talk to people all the time because the quality. The other thing is,
your carrier probably has Wi-Fi calling too, right? I mean, that would be.
The Wi-Fi calling on a carrier is really unstable. It's
really?
Yeah. So it's really hard to the Wi-Fi.
Which carrier are you?
AT&T and Verizon, both of them have been problematic, and so where it's much more stable to use if someone has a phone, has an iPhone. It's much more stable to just use FaceTime audio. And all you have to do now, they've made it. I feel like Apple is kind of sneaking up on this problem because they've made it so easy because you just literally
why not use the internet? Yeah.
You push down on the call.
It's all in one app.
And it just says mobile or FaceTime audio, and you hit FaceTime audio, and you call that person FaceTime audio.
Do they have to have an iPhone? Can you call FaceTime audio to a phone? No. They have to have an iPhone.
Yeah. So you get
with the browser with iOS 15, you'll be able to answer in a browser on Android or Windows.
So it's those damn green bubble people. They ruin it for all of us.
Those people who just don't fall in luck. Is there a presentation slide somewhere inside Apple where they take the here's to the crazy people speech and they say, if only we could get all of these crazy people to switch to iPhone and just accept that we are the one choice for everybody and not have any choice or not have any flexibility. These damn crazy people are screwing it up for everybody.
I'll have a review.
Yeah, it made no sense. Also,
go ahead.
As Steve said, they were going to make it open source, and then they started getting sued. And they are still being sued
over
11
FaceTime.
years later for FaceTime. Yeah.
I'll have a review tomorrow on Hands on Technology of the Samsung Flip 3. I would love to move to this and a Samsung Watch, and it's so close, but it's that green bubble problem. Really, that is actually a showstopper for people.
That should be offensive to everybody. That if you are choosing what piece of hardware that you're going to run based exclusively on, there is a messaging system that Apple refuses to make compatible with a competing platform, with internal documents proving that the reason why they are not making an Android version of it is because they don't want to create a marketing opportunity for less expensive Android phones. That should be just so offensive to you bodily that you're going to say, screw you, I'll buy 3 Samsung
We're so
phones.
used to that, Andy, though. That's the tech industry. I mean, honestly, that's why people use Windows. That's why people use Macs. I mean,
that's why most of the world is on WhatsApp anyway.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the nature of the tech industry is lock-in.
I mean, I agree.
It's offensive.
Everything that we do is a compromise,
right?
Where we live, the state. I mean, it's not like California is the best state best state ever. It's just the state we live in, and we've decided that.
Oh, I disagree. It's the best state ever. You and me.
Aren't you in New England or Leo?
California is the best state ever because it's the state.
I bet you order red chowder in a restaurant.
No, I haven't gone over to the Manhattan clam chowder side. I have to admit, I'm still a New England clam chowder guy.
To go. No, it's all about Manhattan.
I'm sitting with Odocta. We took Odocta and his 14-year-old daughter out to dinner last night, and she said, "You're not from around here, are you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You have an accent." I said, "I do not have an accent." She said, "You do." And she said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Rhode Island." She said, "Yeah, I hear it." So maybe it is. You can take the boy out of Rhode Island.
When they say
doctor has taught her how to roast you.
Yeah, no kidding.
But so all of these things are. The thing is that everything we buy is a compromise, and we decide that we don't
you have
like
to choose your compromises.
I have to admit again, and I'll always be on the other side of it. I want Apple to be able to continue to innovate. So standardization means that they'll slow down. I just want them, and the reason part of the reason is the keep people locked in, but the other thing is that there'll be a whole bunch of things as soon as you start making it available. Like for instance, right now I can text USDZ files to people and they can open them over the Blue Bubble. But if they started standardizing all of this, it would become this thing of, oh, this doesn't work and this does work, and Apple can keep on playing with it.
That's why we have you on. I think this panel is very balanced. Andy's on the opposite side of this spectrum. Renee, I don't know. Yeah, freedom. Andy and I are
I'm
for
in the
freedom.
middle. I'm deeply broke on this because
there's some blue face paint I need to go splash on my face.
When you look at it from a purely consumer perspective, like fragmentation, competition is great, fragmentation is bad, and those things are always in balance. It's like security and convenience. Like there's no perfect solution, and we'd all just be doing that. Everything is absolutely a trade-off, and you've got to. My problem is that so many people in the media aren't like us, and they want the soundbite, they want the 10-word answer.
That's
they don't
really
care
true.
at all about the nuance or the subtlety or the damage that some of this stuff causes. It's just, how do I get famous off me being really angry about this?
Yeah, we really
I love the fact that we can have these conversations.
Almost to a fault. We really chew on it and try to figure out. And I'm sure that's why people listen to us, because if you wanted to. People always say, "Oh, you're not sufficiently worshipful of Apple." They don't say it that way, but and I said, "Well, if you want that, there are plenty of places you can go to get worshipful Apple coverage. What we're trying to do, we're trying to represent the end user in the world of technology." And I think, I'll be honest, Alex, your position is completely legit. There are definitely benefits to lock-in and to the walled garden. There's no question about it.
To the
like
vast
Disneyland.
majority of users.
Yeah.
Like when we say vast majority, 99.99% are probably pretty happy with it. And again, the other thing is they bought into it. So we bought into a lifestyle.
Well, but see, I'd argue with you that, I mean, I use it, but I use it kind of unhappy. And as I said, I'm trying to, if I wanted to try to switch to Android, it's those little lock-in things that really get you, and it makes it hard. And there's no
Google
like
has
Android,
functional AI, Leo. That's a lock-in.
There's no equivalent Android ecosystem. The Windows Android, the Windows Samsung Your Phone thing is god awful. It's not. It's terrible. And so there isn't any really alternative.
It is awful, and the thing is
That's
that
why you're saying
it's awful because it's all over. Part of what allows Apple to do what it does is that it doesn't have to deal with a bunch.
Here's my argument against it, because I was asked this when I was talking to Philip Elmer DeWitt's Apple investors. It's a monoculture, and a monoculture is in the long run bad for everybody because it's one way. My way or the highway, and it isn't good for overall for innovation and keeping prices low and a bunch of other things.
Well, the good news is that it's still less than 50% of the world's usage. So it isn't a monoculture because there's a whole other world out there.
But those of you who live in the Apple culture, you are in the monoculture. That's the thing. You're voluntarily. You are happy in the monoculture, Alex. Just as most people are happy eating the same banana. But in the long run,
or going to McDonald's,
we're going to have problems because or going to McDonald's. But we're going to have problems because of the monoculture. So
I think, but the thing is that trying to fix a problem before it's a problem, it just creates more problems. The thing is that it's just going to be.
You're right. Premature optimization.
Someday it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, no,
someday
right.
It's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Someday it's going to be a problem, and when it's a problem, we can talk about it. But for now, for most users, and when I say most users, probably 99.99%, it is. It's great. It's working great, and we don't need to start tweaking it while it's still working. And I think that we get into this. I mean, we have just turned into a crazy nanny state where we're like, okay, we're gonna have the government fix everything for us. Maybe we just let
I'll argue against that because the government is society, and society needs to express its desires. These companies are expressing their heartfelt wish to make the most amount of money possible for their stakeholders. It is a responsibility of society, and it acts through government to say, yeah, fine for your shareholders, but there's a greater need. There's a greater good. So I completely disagree with you. You've really gone right wing on us, and I completely disagree with you. You're wrong. We are the government.
But the thing is that what we're talking about though is we're talking about protecting rich companies that want to break into this market and make this work. We're not talking about the average user because the average user is benefiting from the way it is, And so the thing is that I think that the users have a right as well to say I don't want to. I
agree.
I want it to be.
There are multiple stakeholders, but don't rule out the government because that's an important stakeholder. No, that's not true.
The stakeholder that matters
society
is the person who bought into it.
We as a society matter. And we've gone too far in this individualistic thing. And you could see it with COVID-19, this whole BS individualistic thing. There is a reason for society to express its overarching interests. And Apple's going to, by the way, Apple's going to face it. In fact, our next story, we're going to take a break, but our next story will be very much about Apple. The dominoes are starting to fall, and they're falling first in South Korea. Yep.
Yeah.
Korea.
But first... I'll end this because nobody wants to hear a political discussion, Alex. I respect your point of view. Absolutely. We've had
Alex, expect a FaceTime call from me exactly 30 seconds after we go off air.
No, I love you, Alex, and
Bubble Andy.
I really appreciate that point of view. I just want to make sure that the other point of view is heard.
My point of view is not a general of how the government should work. It's specific to
technology.
In most things, not in all technology either, but I'm very protective of this one space because it is a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
And if the government goes in there and tweaks it, and the thing is that these people that run our government, they're idiots. And so the thing is that to have idiots.
You should elect better idiots then. You need to elect better idiots.
So the thing is that the thing is that when it comes to technology, they have no idea what they're talking about. And so what's going to happen is we have a bunch. It's like we're going to have a bunch of cooks go in there that have never actually cooked anything, and they're going to start chopping stuff up and feeding us food that I was like, well, the cooks that were there were just fine.
Yeah.
I don't need it. And I still think that individually, as a group of people who bought into something, that we have a right as users to not have them mess it all up. And they, we can talk about the esoteric reasons why we're gonna ruin everything for everyone, but that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna.
Yeah, Larry Page wanted that too. Larry Page wanted that. He went on at a Google I/O and said, we just need a Google Island because this government interference with us is really getting to be a pain in the butt. Just let us do our thing in our little corner of the world. I don't know if that's you live in the world though. I mean, it's in the world.
When Apple has, again, when we have a lot of laws out there already, and when Apple has a controlling interest over the market, that's a whole different thing. If Apple was at 80% of the market, and they don't have the right to say you can't break us up or you can't do anything else. When they have less than 50% of the global market and about 50% of the American market, that's not a controlling interest of it. They're not a monopoly,
right.
And so
come on,
they're not a monopoly until they have that.
You're okay.
Under the standards we've used for the last 60, 70 years, they're not a monopoly. Okay. It's not. So under those standards. So you have to make up some new stuff, and they'll make up new stuff that'll just break stuff, and they'll just it'll be a pain. And then, and then people like me will go on Twitter and remind everyone who to get rid of. Here's how you vote people out, because as soon as the problem that the politicians have that are coming up is that iPhone users don't care right now, but if you break it all, they will, and then you can focus a lot of energy on the politicians. And so that's what usually happens is when things get taken away and things aren't working, then you end up with a lot of people that are angry, especially when there's other people reminding them of why it's broken.
Again, so please take 45 minutes of impassioned rebuttal as read. I won't. Again, I will put on my shot clock for this. Just simply saying that I just think that your thinking is fundamentally flawed. I've been shaking my head all throughout most of what you've been saying. We could not be more opposed in our points of view, and with our understanding of reality and our philosophy on this topic.
Sure. Thank you. So, and let's take a break. Well said, both of you. So we're going to take a break now. Stop.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I didn't get into detail. Just
you can FaceTime him after the show. No, yes, exactly. I think this is a conversation that's going on all over the country. In fact, to some degree, all over the world right now. And it's not just about Apple; it's about a whole bunch of stuff. And it's a fundamentally important conversation. And we all have strong feelings about it. Our show today brought to you by AT&T Active Armor. I have been remiss. I should have mentioned AT&T as a sponsor. We love having them as a sponsor. And I have to say, I have phones with every carrier. I use my AT&T phone primarily because I don't want to get bugged by fraudulent phone calls. When you're on your phone these days, it's not just for phone calls, whether it's live streaming content or, we do a regular family video call every Thursday. Of course, watching your favorite podcast. I know for a lot of you, there is no room for fraudulent calls. In fact, it got to the point, it got so bad that I would just stop answering the phone. Well, thank goodness AT&T's done something about it. They make customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. It's AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop the threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/active armor for details. And we thank AT&T for helping keep Mac Break Weekly live and on the air. You know who else we thank? All of our Club Twit members. Thank you, Club Twit members. We're working on some interesting ideas. I'm getting a foolishly ordered. It's from Canada, so I blame you, Renee.
What?
There's a mouse out there that is a open. Speaking of open and closed systems, it's an open mouse.
I think you mean moose, sir.
Moose. They should call it a moose. The drivers are open. The board is open. Everything is open. You can assemble it yourself, or you could buy it pre-assembled. And I thought, I am going to buy, because a right to repair.
Is it Duplo?
Is it Duplo? It looks like Duplo.
Or Lego?
It's got a funny name like that, actually. It's Boogaloo or something. I can't remember the name. But I'll find it before the end of the show. But I foolishly ordered it unassembled. So I think for Club Twit, we're going to have, I'm going to take a page from you, Office Hours, Alex, because I love this idea. Alex has really invented a new medium where you have one person kind of hosting, but other people watching and talking and kibitzing as he does it. And my soldering skills are so pathetic. And there is soldering involved in the assembly of this mouse. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to do this in the club with your help. So we'll announce that when
it's patent unencumbered soldering. At least
it's patent. It's Libre open source soldering. So I thought I'd take a page from Office Hours. We'll play with it in the Club Twit. We're also doing a Club Twit a little different for our shows from now on, and this was pioneered by Micah Sargent and Rosemary Orchard on iOS Today. They started streaming their show in the video room on Discord. And so you can join us in there and watch the video. Now you're getting video of the video being watched by the video, which is very confusing. But you can watch the video in real time, and we can take questions there as well. The only reason we didn't do that earlier is because, unlike a stage in Discord, the video rooms are limited to 25 people. But I think we'll see how that works out. If you're interested in Club Twit, the real benefit, a lot of people say, is the ad-free versions of all of our shows. You can get that, audio and video. You can also get access to this fabulous Discord where there's great chat going on and 24/7 on all sorts of topics. Look, for some reason I'm getting picture-in-picture. That's very interesting. I don't know. That's, I guess, a Discord feature. That's kind of cool. And you also get access to the Twit Plus feed. In fact, that's where we'll put the mouse assembly. I'm also getting this new framework laptop that's got a right to repair laptop. I'm going to assemble that on the Discord feed. And we'll also put that in the Twit Plus feed. All of this $7 a month. It helps us dramatically keep this network on the air and make the shows that you like. So if you'd like to join, just a little plug for Club Twit at twit.tv/clubtwit. Thank you so much to all of our Club Twit members. We really appreciate it. So the shoe has dropped in South Korea. I suspect this is just the beginning. The National Assembly now has passed the App Store law. It is expected the president will sign it because his party was very much in favor of this, forcing Google and Apple to allow third-party in-app payments. It doesn't mean additional app stores, but it does mean you don't have to take Apple Pay or Google Pay for payments, that you could have a third-party payment, which most importantly for the developers means you don't have to pay 30% VIG.
That part's not known because Apple, at least Apple has said that they will just send you a bill for that 30%.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, Tim Cook during his testimony said, well, it's going to be really complicated to collect our commission if we're not handling the process payments, but we'll figure it out.
Ploopy, that's the name of it. Ploopy, the trap. So their position is, okay, you can say that, but we're going to charge you anyway? I don't think that's the spirit of the South Korean law. We'll see.
No, not at all. But I don't think executives thought that the commission was tied to the payment processing. That was just a convenience you got for you.
Isn't that interesting? If you want to be in the App Store, you still have to pay us 30% of your revenue. It's just, the state of California does that. When you buy online, back when Amazon didn't charge sales tax, the state of California's position was you still owe it. So just say it when you fill out your income tax every year. Just tell us how much you bought and give us the
our form, tax. I don't know about yours, but our form has a slot for illegal income. It's like, so even if you're not charged with a crime, if you got illegal income, you're still supposed to fill that in.
It's a gorgeous solution to the problem, saying that if they get you for nothing else, they say, well, you were supposed to report it, you failed to report it, therefore we can at least put you in jail for 2 years while we figure out what to put you in jail for 30 years. So, but this actually, my understanding is that there's a second component to it that also prohibits Apple and Google from forcing an app developer to use those two app stores exclusively and to not list their apps in alternative app stores.
Wow.
They can't take too long to approve an app, and they can't reject it out of hand either, I think is part of it.
So the interesting thing, we mentioned this last time, now that they've passed it, will the White House, which is also kind of, on the one hand, trying to get Apple to do something through the FTC, now stand up because this is South Korea imposing its trade rules
on American
companies. Will they stand up for American companies? This is very challenging.
The internet's going to bring us all together, Leo.
The government hasn't officially gotten involved, although the trade group that Apple and Google are members of have been pressuring them on the sense that, well, there has to be a violation of a trade agreement. This is part of your portfolio to attack this, to protect us against this sort of legislation. But I don't believe that the Biden administration has officially taken a point of view on this yet, which is in itself quite telling. I mean, the personnel that they have been putting into high impact places, like particularly at the FTC, is very, very telling that they are not going to get as much love not going to get any love at all from any department in the Biden administration if they can possibly help it. I mean, we have a 32-year-old expert at antitrust, expert at basically poking holes in the dominance of tech companies so severely that Amazon has said that, okay, well, you can't let her prosecute us because she was mean to us in the past before she was the head of the FTC.
That, by the way, she did not recuse herself. They lost on that regard. Cabel Sasser, who is at Panic, and a very, I think this was John Gruber, somebody pointed out, Cabel is very much an Apple supporter, is starting to become a very much aggressive developer in this anti-App Store thing. He refers to a thread from Samantha John about Hopscotch. And I don't know if you've all read this thread, but I'll kind of summarize this. Hopscotch is an app for schools. She's kind of a lone developer doing this. We're submitting a bug fix to update Hopscotch this weekend. We wanted to get it quickly out ahead of the school year because schools don't update often after downloading. The app was rejected because, quote, our promoted in-app purchasers had identical titles and descriptions, which could be confusing to users. She says, that makes sense as a guideline, except it wasn't the case. Our titles and descriptions were different. So she changed the description to be even more different, replied to the message, resubmitted the app. A day later, the app rejected again. At this point, I didn't know what to do. I was in a Kafka-esque universe where I had to blindly guess at what could be wrong and randomly change things until the bureaucrats let me through with a one-day delay. Luckily, I had contacted Apple. I emailed them for help, carefully explained the issue. They told me, submit an appeal. So I submitted an appeal, complete with screenshots. I had two things on my side. The rejection made no sense, and the rejection was unrelated to my app update. Here's the reply. They let us release the bug fix, but told me the rejection was valid, and I still need to update the app to comply with the guidelines, specifically 2.3.1 of the App Store Review Guidelines. Today I got a call from potential spam in San Jose. I ignored it, but it turned out it was actually from Apple. They're basically, it was an Apple App Store representative saying, are you planning to update to correct the problem? I told her as nicely as I could. I did not know what the problem was. Our promoted in-app purchases had different titles and descriptions, contrary to the complaint from App Review. The purpose of the call was for her to tell me what I needed to change. She paused for a moment while presumably looking at her case, then said, oh, I think the automated software must have had a glitch. It just got escalated to me, but I saw that your rejection was a mistake. I wanted to call and tell you. Oh, really? That all of a sudden. So this seems a little suspicious. Samantha says, people I've met who work at Apple are lovely, have been incredibly supportive of Hopscotch, but there's something rotten in a system that treats developers this way. Cabel Sasser says, in response, I thought I had experienced the full possible range of feelings regarding Apple and the App Store, but settling a lawsuit promising, oh, by the way, Apple settled their lawsuit with developers. Yeah. Promise, and in the settlement, Sasser says, promising absolutely nothing new as part of the settlement, and spinning that as some kind of big developer win has brought me to, and he's being very judicious here, exciting new mental places. What's it all mean?
I've heard the story of Hopscotch 100 times in the past 3 or 4 years with different app names, different developers. Apple has a serious problem with these, again, Kafka-esque experiences where all you did was submit a bug fix, and suddenly they're saying, oh, well, your entire app is completely against our guidelines. We're not going to tell you exactly what the violation is, but we're not going to allow you to update your app. Or, as has happened with this app, if there's a timely release, one of the bullet points of that thread is that, look, it's used in education, and they find that they will install their users will install it at the start of the school year, but may not necessarily update it later on. So it's very important to get those. Yeah. So for a lot of people, it is. For a lot of other developers, there's a monetary attachment to that, where if they lose this window, they can tell you how much money they're going to lose. And so when it's a problem of, oh gosh, we forgot that we weren't supposed to include that boilerplate text that we were using elsewhere. Right, that was our bad. We should fix that. When they're just simply telling you that, hey, unfortunately, Andy, we can't allow you on the campus because, unfortunately, as you know, you wear bright purple colors all the time instead of wearing a black shirt. Say, well, I am wearing a black shirt. Well, that doesn't sound like you're addressing the problem. If you're saying you're not going to change your shirt, say, well, I don't have to change my shirt. You're complaining about a problem that doesn't actually exist. And you're locked into the syndrome where you feel as though nobody is listening to you and nobody cares that your business is being chipped away at by this stupid bureaucracy, which has been causing problems for years without any real visible attempts at Apple to acknowledge it, let alone address it. So this is absolutely indefensible from Apple that they're not prosecuting these problems, they're not addressing these problems, or even acknowledging that they're putting a system into place to figure out what this problem is. The underscore is, we absolutely don't care unless you're making us a double-digit percentage of our App Store revenue. Good luck. Don't worry. There are a lot of restaurants that are hiring right now if you can't make money as a developer because of how we're diddling you over like this.
Samantha John continues to write, Hopscotch is a small company. I'm the CEO and I write code, and that's how a lot of the best apps work. My time is limited and it's precious to me. The way that Apple wasted my energy, gaslighted me, and sucked my time away made me furious. They did call her a couple of days ago to apologize and ask for feedback. She says, who knows if they'll actually implement it, but at least they're listening. Sometimes it pays to tweet, right, and get the...
I'm going to need FaceTime video so you can see what finger I'm holding up, Apple. When can we schedule this for my feedback?
Now, I don't know if I want to take responsibility for this. She says, I don't know what's worse, an automated system with zero human oversight continually telling me falsely that our app is out of compliance, or some person named Leo... I don't know how I got involved in this. Continually pressing
it's a low Earth orbit, Leo, not you.
Continually pressing the reject button without ever bothering to read my message because the automated system said I was wrong. Ms. John, I am so sorry. I had nothing to do with this. It must be the other Leo.
I have a bit of a unique perspective on this because I live in both the Apple and the YouTube world, and I've gotten a chance to talk to people inside Apple and inside YouTube, because this is the exact problem YouTube faces, that there's always horrible videos that make it onto YouTube and perfectly good channels that are rejected for absolutely no
It's a problem, as
reason.
we talked about last week, a problem of scale, right?
Yeah.
You get to so big at some point you can't do the job you promised to do.
I think that's the problem, is that they don't realize, I can't say they don't realize, but you have to they have to understand these problems are not solvable, and there's going to be an error rate that is crushing to human beings. It's absolutely crushing to human beings. You're going to let through some of the absolute worst material imaginable, and you're going to hurt some really great people who don't deserve it. And just make a response team for that. Have a response team that before it gets in front of Daniel Jalkut or Cabel Sasser or MacBreak Weekly is scouring Twitter with sentiment analysis and doing all these things, pulling up, App Store reject, and just their one job is to make sure every have a developer sat, not customer sat, but developer sat that you have up on the slide at WWDC. 99.99999% of developers super satisfied with the human part of our experience, because we know we make mistakes, but we catch them and we fix them. And I think that's the part that's missing from all of these automated systems.
Yeah, and it is that the scale does create a huge problem, but Apple is not two hippies in a garage. It is a $2 trillion company trending towards becoming a $3 trillion company. They have the resources to put more human bodies on this to at least mitigate some of this. So if their excuse for not doing this is that we don't have the resources, that is a lie. And if they're not giving any reason for not doing it, then that is admitting that they don't care. This is such a big, it's not just a practical problem, but it's a PR problem for them, and one that they should be absolutely concerned about solving.
I mean,
it's that statement they made with John Gruber once, where they said that he was like, they were saying like, why are people so frustrated with the platform? We don't understand it, Apple. Our crash rate is so low now. Every tool we have measures that our crash rate is the lowest. And he's like, it's not crashes. There are so many frustrations that are not involved in crash. Like, yeah, we totally blew it. We thought that crashes equaled and this too, like their rate shows that they have like a 0.00001 false rejection or acceptance rate. And they're like, that's terrific. That's amazing on the billions of things that we look at every day. And it's like, but those are people. Like, those are real human beings there. Beautiful, and you're not measuring the frustration that they have. Yeah. Sorry,
I think that the thing is, I had to submit a lot of things to a lot of different companies, and I find pretty much anything with more than 100 employees, and oftentimes anything more than about 30, create these problems. so the thing is that it just keeps getting bigger, and it scales almost proportionally, sometimes exponentially, with the number of people that you're dealing with. And I mean, whether it's United Airlines or Google or Facebook or Apple or the government, the DMV, we all have the DMV experience. Like, why can't they throw more people at that? I mean, I'd really love to have that. And so and the long, so the thing is that anytime we, and the problem is we can magnify it all with Twitter, which I do often. And so I think that, but I think that it's, I think that Apple, I think, does need to get better at this, but I think that we get a little hyperbolic. When we talk to people about how long it's going to take to get their app in. I'm helping someone right now get an app in, and it's getting blocked because of some weird little thing. But it's just like, okay, well, how do we handle that? And it's just the mechanism that you work with, and we're working through that process. And I will admit that I think that what they're blocking is silly, but it's just like, okay, well, what's the game, and how do I play that game and then get my app in there, And the thing is that we tell anybody that we're working with, we built a couple apps in the last little bit of time, and we say 4 weeks. Like, from the time you want to do an update, give yourself 4 weeks. And sometimes it's a day, and you're like, wow, that's amazing, but don't set a schedule on that. Don't say like think of that as like extra time that you were given to get through that, And I think that the thing is that it's unrealistic to think that you're going to send something into a system that has a check and balance system, and it's going to be done over the weekend. Like, that's just not going to happen.
What if you're told you're rejected? What if you're rejected and not told why you're rejected and it's wrong? And then not told what to do to fix it, and then said, but you still have to fix it. What kind of weird...
Like talking to the world's worst robot.
Yeah, what kind of weird system is that? Regardless of the time involved, the system still doesn't work.
The system, actually, for a lot of people, it is working. There's a lot of people
that's not what we're talking about. We don't talk about the people who are being treated well and having good experiences. The flaws expose themselves in the people who are having a horrible experience.
But you're being absolutist. Everything is broken. Everything in the world is broken. Nothing works.
For heaven's sake.
No, nothing.
That doesn't.
What works? Give me something, and I'll point out the absolute. Like, one person has a problem.
The fact that United Airlines has a problem with doing customer service at scale means it's okay for Apple to have exactly the same. I accept that this is a veil of tears, and that mankind is born to struggle just as surely as the sparks fly upward. But when we see what appears to be a very fixable problem at Apple, I'm not going to simply say that read your book of Job and good luck. I'm going to say Apple fixed this problem.
Apple should continue to make progress on the problem, but to say that it's all like this is the whole place is burning down. It is a developer that's having this problem.
I agree, but I hear more and more. Cabel Sasser's saying it. I hear more and more developers complaining about this.
And the sentiment
Marco Arment's complaining about it. A lot of big name developers are complaining about this.
And
a problem.
I a lot of them aren't. So like, the thing is that but again,
So the silent majority rules, and people who are not happy with the system should just shut up.
Progress, but no, we should keep on saying we should fix it. But to act like it's like the end of the world is a little much. Like it is not this. It is something that you're always making progress on. Anytime you build a system, it is not working. It is always working better than it's not working if it's moving forward, and that's sometimes it's creeping forward at 51% working and 50% not working. And if you're getting into the 70s, 80% working, you're doing amazing, much better than almost everything else out there, and so, I mean, and I don't know, I mean, everything that I work with is broken, and I mean, I that's all I deal with is broken things, and you're constantly trying to
perception problem at this point. Like when you have people like Cabel and Daniel who worked at Apple.
I just think it's a nearly unfixable problem. So the thing is that it isn't just about throwing more people at it, because more people just create more chaos. You have to, scaling people.
That's such an overgeneralization. No.
Oh my gosh! Like, have you ever hired 1,000? I can just tell you, I hired 20 people in 3 months, and it was chaos. And so the thing is that, like, permanently, and the thing is that it is, adding 1,000 people or 2,000 people or 10,000, whatever it is right now, it is not. There is a logistical problem there that we're not taking into account. And so the thing is that it just takes time to sort things out, and it does need to get better, and it needs to get improved. But I just think that we're getting a little over our skis on this.
I haven't hired hundreds of people, no, but I have interviewed people who are on the ground floor and responsible for scaling up a 100-seat company into a 10,000-seat company. And they realize that maybe by hiring the right number of people and putting them in the right places, they can actually achieve goals that might have seemed hard with that 100-person team. They were not 10,000 people who were bumping into heads like a ping pong balls being dropped from the top of a gantry or anything like that. I'm not saying that we should expect perfection. Again, imperfection is part of the burden of human life. I'm not saying that they can possibly make everybody happy. I'm saying, though, that we're not going to judge how well the system works by how well it worked for the people who have no complaints. They're fine. They're great, wonderful. Let's talk to the people who have been describing this as, again, a Kafkaesque nightmare, which is the phrase that keeps coming up over and over and over again. And when you have people who have decades of experience as developers, who are the heads of very, very big and successful companies, I would say even important companies in the Mac space and in the iOS space, who are saying that this is not just, oh gosh, isn't it terrible that this is part of the problems of scale is that some people are going to have bad experiences. When they're telling you that the house is on fire, our job is not to look across the street and say, yeah, but that elementary school in the next town over is perfectly fine. So, some elementary schools, they're going to burn.
I think we can agree there's a problem. We might not agree on how intractable it is, but that we can agree there's a problem and that Apple should be and apparently is working on it. I think the question is does Apple care enough to fix it? Can Apple fix it? And maybe most importantly, is Apple going to suffer because of this? Is Apple going to get the kind of regulation that's happening in South Korea hit hard by the same thing all over the world? And I think whether Apple wants to fix it or can fix it, they should be aware of the fact they have I agree with you, Renee. They at least have a perception problem.
But also, whether they're on the same page about the problem, I think this is something that has bit Apple so often over the last few years. Well, one is they didn't get ahead of any of this stuff. Like, they just get ahead of this stuff. Like, read the winds, see where things are going, make preemptive actions, avoid the worst outcomes, that kind of stuff. But we saw this with, the privacy stuff we talked about last week, where they say we misunderstand the technology, but they're misunderstanding our our feelings about the technology. And here, they may argue that the developers are misunderstanding the way in which they're steering the App Store, but they're misunderstanding the frustrations. And I think one of the issues also is that people keep talking about the symptoms. Like, I hate this 30% thing. I hate this, this other, the in payments thing. But those are, again, those 10-word answers. What is the solution you want? And then how do we engineer towards that solution? And that, I think, gets totally lost in these discussions because everyone gets so angry about, the percentage, or it's like a tax. And nobody figures, what would be bad? What would make James Thompson deliriously happy? What would make Cabel Sasser deliriously happy? You can't, $1 billion, sure, but let's take the silly stuff off the table and then engineer a store that works for all these people in 2021.
Do you think Apple is paying attention? That they're listening to this and going, we got to fix it?
I'm sure that they're absolutely paying attention. They're absolutely working on it, and it's a really complicated problem.
And I understand. It's difficult.
We're just painfully oversimplifying it.
And their concerns are very different.
Really complicated.
Dev concerns and vice versa.
I would just like to think
it's easy for us to it's easy to tell the quarterback what he should be doing when we're sitting in the stands. It's just like, oh yeah, he should have done that. But
no, we're not telling. Look, we're not telling what to do. We're saying there's a problem. No, I don't know. What do you do? How do you solve this? I don't know. We've not said what to do, but there is clearly a problem in which we're reporting on. Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
you make them feel valued.
Well, again, we realize that Apple is a big company. They have a lot of problems, and sometimes the reasons why they can't address certain problems are the most mundane of all. They just have such a big bureaucracy in place, and they don't have enough focus on a certain problem to say we are going to put all of our attention towards solving this. You think about the fact that they figured out all the infrastructure they needed to do to be able to sell a $12,000 solid gold gadget watch in special boutiques that they would have to construct custom made in most of their Apple stores. They are figuring out how to do self-driving cars, even though they have no announced plans on, or even really no data on where they can actually be financially successful doing that. They are developing, they appear to be developing wearable augmented reality, despite the fact that there is no evidence that people are going to want to put something practical on their faces and walk around with it, let alone the fact the guesswork about whether or not this is going to be relevant to anybody's needs. So we're talking about a company that can. We're talking about a company that can do lots and lots of things if they are focused on it and they identify it as something that they want to put all their efforts on. I'm saying that because this is not a recent problem with the App Store that's just popped up ever since they made a change to the App Store 2 years ago, or ever since a certain person left the VP suite or entered the VP suite. This has been going on almost since the beginning. They've had so many swings at this that we have to wonder why these problems keep coming up in this sort of intensity, and that the legend of Apple not caring about developers when there's a problem, that is kind of significant, I think.
All of the examples you gave are far simpler than dealing with millions of developers around the world. They're all far simpler. As someone who deals with lots of people,
they may be simpler, but Apple doesn't seem to be solving them. And this is not a new complaint.
It's not an easily solvable problem. When you deal with lots and lots of users, you deal with lots and lots of problems. And so the thing is that lots and lots of developers trying to feed into it. We talk about this all the time. When we develop, for instance, a live app, we tell everyone, you got to get this all working as soon as you turn it on, because, there's just going to be 1,000 people that are, if you put 100,000 people into it and 1,000 people can't get in, it's 1%, but it's still a lot of people that are on Twitter, And so the thing is that
I have to agree with you on that. Twitter has become.
I really don't like that.
So the thing is that
I'm saying I don't really like saying that. It's not people who are whining on Twitter.
It's more than
who
that.
Are having their lives severely disrupted, their businesses severely disrupted. Yeah. And they're turning to Twitter because if Apple were responding in any way, shape, or form in a significant way, they wouldn't have to go to Twitter. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'll wind down now.
I go to Twitter all the time because I can't get any other way to do it. I just go, okay, well, I'm just going to go on Twitter and I'll get this solved.
It's fortunate companies incorrectly believe that people pay attention to Twitter. I don't think it's true, but it's good.
I don't know if people pay attention to Twitter. All I care about is that they pay attention to Radian 6. So Radian 6 is the back end. That's all that matters. So it doesn't matter how many people are actually watching.
No, that's true. If there is a feedback mechanism, that's called Radian 6? That's for app developers to feedback.
I don't know what it's called anymore. It was bought by Salesforce a long time ago. But what it does is when you complain about it, it looks at how many followers and it looks at your reach across through the entire network, and then it makes a decision on how quickly someone on the other end of a company sees it. So when it doesn't matter how many people on Twitter, but if X number of followers, and it's not just how many followers you have, it's how many followers they have and how many followers they have. So it looks across the entire network and it looks at what your potential impact is.
Oh, so it's analyzing. But see, that's the wrong way to handle it, to be honest with you.
I'm just telling you but that's why people go on Twitter. So that's how you get. That's why you get response.
That makes sense because they're paying attention to that. Yeah. So if I complain with 500,000 followers, I'm going to get more. Much more response, which is why I very rarely complain, because I don't want to use that power.
I don't use it very. I complain.
It's nice once in a while. Honestly, developers should have a way to say to Apple directly, fix this. Apple should be getting signals somehow besides Salesforce.
The point is that I just think that we it's easy for us to say, but it is.
I agree. I understand. It's hard.
It's complicated. And as you have more, and the thing is that it's just easy to tell people that this is the way that they should do it, and they should just go fix this. Well, it's not.
It seems to me that this automated system is pretty broken.
Address the problem and acknowledge the problem exists.
Yeah.
Neither of which seems to be happening at Apple's end at this point.
Yeah. So
from my point of view.
And the main thing is that the Apple always will, and as a user, I prefer that Apple is always looking out for the user first. And the reason that the App Store is what it is, and the reason that it's successful, and it's the reason all these developers want to go to the App Store instead of the Android store, is because Apple does this. Is because Apple makes sure that as a user, when I see an app, I have a fairly good chance that it's going to be a good app when I see it, that it's not going to be malignant, in what it does. And the process of cleaning that out for the user, is a hard, if you keep on trying to do that, it's going to create errors. So the other side of that is let everything through and then have it be have users have bad experiences and then be less likely to want to just buy an app that they just saw someone use and go, oh, I'm just going to try that I'm going to pay $3 or $5 or $10 or whatever that number is because I know that it's probably, I have a very, very good chance of it being a solid app because of this. And so the thing is that the commerce that goes into the App Store and the reason people buy apps, not just ad driven, whatever, is because Apple makes it a place for the user to be safe to buy. But when they do that and it's not 100% safe either. Like there's 1% of whatever that isn't working. But when Apple makes it way more likely that you're going to be able to buy something, people buy things more. They buy things off the cuff. They buy things flippantly. And that is really good for the developers in the long run because people are just they're willing to buy their apps really quickly rather than buying them slowly, And so the thing is and that's good for Apple. It's good for the developers. But it will create that process, that sieve is going to create a backhaul. And the thing is that, it's going to create problems and there's going to be errors because there is errors inherently with any system that includes humans.
Okay. I think though Apple's going to be facing some headwinds. I'm very curious what they do about Korea. I think it's hysterical that they will just send invoices.
Yeah. Apple Arcade is the easiest way for Apple to get out.
Yeah,
of this.
Apple could just
they had some really good developers. There's developer feedback on all of this. Some developers think this is great. Some developers think this is terrible. Some developers are very pragmatic and going like, oh my God, what am I going to do for international taxes? They used to handle all of that for me.
Right.
So it's going to be a bunch of trade-offs. Some developers, some users are going to say, like Alex does already, I only want to use Apple's in-store stuff, and if you don't use that, I'm going to find a different app, and that's fine. And some developers are going to say, I like that Apple rolls up the taxes and that they give me X, Y, Z, and they're going to use it, and that's fine. And others will make other choices, and we'll see how the fragmentation will be annoying, but the competition will be good. And, my whole thing is, what do you want the App Store to be? If you're really happy with the way it is, any change is going to annoy you. If you're really unhappy with it, any change is like maybe better, maybe for the worst. You'll have to wait and see. If there was an easy answer, we'd have it already.
Yeah. Let's see. I guess we can move on. If you had the no sound issue, I wasn't aware of this being a big problem, but apparently there are a lot of iPhone 12 owners who are suffering from a lack of sound due to a component that might fail on the receiver module. It's enough that Apple's doing a recall. So if you have, with
the receiver module, what do they mean by the receiver
module? It's the little, I don't know what that is. What is the receiver module?
The earpiece, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what they're saying. It's up at the top, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 12 Mini, 12 Pro Max, not part of this program, but there is a service program now for 12 and 12 Pros, and they will fix it for you at no charge. Not much to say about that. I haven't experienced it. I don't know anybody who has, but there you go. Just want to let you know.
Oh, it's usually like this is like similar to Radar. Radar is a software system. Apple and all big companies have this software system where they input all the repair requests, and if it gets big enough and it's costly enough, they issue like a program like this or a recall program.
Right.
And if your issue is not bugging you, it just means not enough people have reported it. So go report it.
Bernstein analysts say Google will be paying $15 billion this year to Apple to remain the default search, and that next year it's likely to increase to $20 billion.
Do we have any idea how accurate these are? Because they keep doing this every year, and people get flabbergasted by the money. But I've never seen any actual reporting.
Well, Apple doesn't tell, and Google doesn't tell. So I guess there's no way. Well, the estimates are based on
why
patterns.
Why is Google paying that much? What else would Apple do? Would they put like Bing in there?
Bing.
No. Like it seems like that's a lot of money to pay to be the default.
It's really valuable real estate that if Microsoft were to outbid Google for that space, that would be such a big jump for Bing as a search engine and such a big loss of access to data for Google. So
Apple's Jane Horvath, Senior Director of Global Privacy, says the company defaults to Google because it's the most popular search engine.
But Google doesn't want to risk that. They don't want to call that bluff.
Yeah. The Bernstein says the numbers come from a detailed analysis of financial documents from both companies. Like they're trying to
I
figure
take
out.
Andy's point, but $15 billion.
That's a lot of money. $20 billion next year.
If Google's willing to write that check, it means they're making a lot more money on the deal.
Well, and we know that Mozilla, we know how much Mozilla gets from Google, and it's I can't remember what it was, but it's like 113 million, something like that.
Most of their money, right?
It's almost all their revenue.
Yeah.
So we know Google pays.
Google AdWords makes so much money.
Google's got plenty of money.
Do you guys want to make a phone with like a search box on it? Can we get together?
Whatever it takes. It is so.
I think the reason it's an interesting number, besides the fact that it's just so big, is that goes into the services bucket when Apple reports its quarterly results. And that shows you that increase in the services bucket may not be App Store, may not be Apple Music, it may be Google. Another $5 billion next year.
It's a lot of stuff, and it's too bad that there's Google does some of this too in its own reporting, where there's just here's a big bucket where we were going to report. Yeah, exactly. We where we learned so much if they would break this out into saying, well, great, you made lots of money in hardware, but how much of it was like accessory cables, and how much of it was this really expensive phone that you released that doesn't seem to be getting any traction.
And before you take a victory lap on how well services are doing, because Apple TV Plus and App Store, if a lot of that is just because Google is for some crazy reason.
Is that more than they make off the Pixel? Like, are they giving Apple more than they make off the entire hardware?
Let me just point out, Google's annual profit is $61.9 billion. So they can give them a $15 billion little vig to keep that number high.
That seems like a lot of their annual profit, though.
25% of their annual.
Yeah,
that seems like a lot. Yeah, maybe that number
don't make sense to me.
You know what? Maybe that's not. Yeah.
Oh, it's still real and it's still substantial, however much it is, and it's hard. It's actually hard for me to decide like how I should react to it, because on the one hand, I really can't fault Apple for saying, well, number one, legitimately having Google search as the default search engine is the best answer for the users.
What if Microsoft said, we'll give you $25 billion to put Bing in there? I think Apple might say no.
Yeah, and also, and if Google is willing to give them X billions of dollars, for God's sakes, if there's free money, take it. Leave the room, sign the contract.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It is at odds with their. We believe that privacy is the most important human right, sanctified by Apple in this entire planet, and this is why we're much better than Google and Facebook. Okay, fine. We kind of have to do that, but again,
you know what they're really paying $15 billion for? They're not paying it to be the default search engine. They're paying it to keep Apple from creating a search engine to compete with Google.
It'd be really hard.
Remember though, we talked about this a lot when Apple Maps came out, that Apple was going to slowly disintermediate all the Google apps. They didn't want Google on the iPhone. And whatever, that didn't happen. And I'm thinking that 15 bill is really a lot more about keeping Apple from kicking them off the iPhone entirely.
Maybe, but building a search engine that competes with Google would be. I mean, Microsoft's tried, and it's not as good. And they put a lot of money into it, and so it's the problem. The problem isn't the code. The problem is the data, and so you have 20 years of data. And that data is getting better and better.
I think there was the same argument about Maps, and Apple's Maps were kind of crap at first, but they've caught up.
Yeah, but it's still not as good as Google, and it's like it's more telling is Siri. So Siri isn't
terrible.
Anywhere close to Google, to the Google Home, and I use Siri all the time. But it's
I use it because if I say so, I changed my Amazon Echo to Ziggy. You can make the keyword Ziggy now, and every once in a while by accident I say, "Hey Ziggy," and Siri goes, "What?" So I use Siri inadvertently all the time.
I mean, I think
Did you do a Siri by accident?
An accidental Siri. Also, on my car,
it's like calling your teacher mom when you're in third grade, isn't it? It's like, ooh,
that's embarrassing. Oh, cringe. In my car, because I really like CarPlay, by the way. It's so good compared to Android Auto. I know there's some people prefer Android Auto, but I think CarPlay is the one. I can use both. And that means the default voice search is Siri. The other day, I was late to an appointment, and I was desperately trying to use Siri, and it constantly, I don't know, I can't help you right now. Sorry, no, Yeah, and
so
it's bad. I gotta be honest with you.
It would, the thing is that Google's understanding of data and understanding of what people want is so high, and Facebook's understanding of people because of the data, the way the data is so high.
So you just can't compare.
There's not really any way to compete with those two on those things. And when you see brands, like and the kind of multipliers they're getting because those things are so efficient, that it really isn't something that I think it would just be a distraction for Apple, because it would take tens of billions of dollars and they still wouldn't be there.
Do you think I'm wrong in saying that Apple's goal was at one point to get Google off the iPhone?
No, I doubt it. It was
too hard.
The difference between Maps and Search is that Maps, you can buy a lot of the data that you need, and you can build cars and send them out to map out the places that you think that
most
you
of
need to
Maps is actually purchased from third parties like TomTom. Yeah.
Right, and Apple is in a really wonderful position to really make the user interface and the user experience on Maps amazing. It is. I really wish that Google Maps were as pretty as Apple Maps. I'm not sure about the data. I'm not sure about how good it is when I want to find a certain thing and it needs to turn up a place. Not only an address for where it is, but also knowledge of here is where the entrance to this building is. That's the sort of subtle stuff that's really tough to nail. But you can do it by buying the data and by sending sending your own cars out. Search is if the one problem that is unique to Apple that I will, of the 80 maybe I could pick out, I think, is that you need to be a wartime consigliere to do a search engine that people will actually benefit from, because you have to be the person that says that we are not we are not sanctimonious about privacy to the extent where where we're not going to map out a collection that hasn't explicitly told us, yes, by all means we'll please index our collection. They're not going to do things like track people habits and their preferences to such an extent that if I do a Google search on Tigra, that it knows that, well, are you searching for the car? Are you searching for the region that's being that's undergoing genocide at this moment? Are you going for the comic book character? Oh, comic book character. Okay. Are you going for the DC Comics character, the Marvel Comics character, the Golden Age character? Because it has observed my browsing habits for a great deal of time, it knows which one that I probably want to get.
And he's not looking for genocide. He's looking for comic book characters.
Yeah.
This we know.
Yeah. And that like Maps makes it much easier. Maps is really important if to integrate with all your other things, so that when someone asks something, when someone's trying to do something, having a good Maps tool that you don't have to ask Google, oh, can you add this hook or can you do this thing? You just have it.
Don't you think though Apple cares about Siri and search, that they really would love to be competitive?
Oh yeah.
They want to be competitive.
It's just going to take a long time, because it took Google a long time. It's going to take Apple a long time. There's not, because the problem is, again, it's not about writing code. It's about accumulating, and as Andy very rightly says, that it is privacy and knowing what you need next are diametrically opposed to each other. And so
I understand.
So the thing is that's the challenge that Apple has with that. And but the maps are really important for general services, and they're also really important if you're doing AR or cars. And so all of that stuff becomes important, down the road.
I'm not sure search and Siri are less important. I think they're pretty important too. And the problem is people will just do what the default is. The reason Bing still exists is because Microsoft also owns Windows and Edge. Otherwise, nobody using.
Well,
Bing
most people who buy a phone, the average person that buys
nobody
an iPhone
changes the search engine. No.
Well, they also probably don't change the maps. They probably just use. I know. I was talking to someone. I was like, "Oh, you should be using Google." I was like, "You should use Google Maps," and they're like, Google Maps, like that. It has
I use Apple Maps because it goes to my watch while I'm driving. My watch, and I turn off the voice.
I use Google Maps specifically because I haven't figured out how to turn that off, and I hate things.
You don't like your watch buzzing while you're driving?
Oh, yeah. Very upset.
Also, I have to say that we were talking about lock-in earlier. That in case I myself was coming across as somewhat sanctimonious, Google Maps for me is one of those examples of, I don't know, willful lock-in, because it's great when I'm like, where's I need to get this thing. I have a poster that I want to get framed. Where's a good place I can get picture framing done? And then I'll see that, oh, wait a minute, it's what are these 4 stars that are sort of near that one picture framing place? And it's like, oh, there's this museum that I kind of wanted to go to, and there's this like comic book store that I wanted to check out, and these are like things that I might have flagged anywhere like 8 to 9 to 10 years ago. When I go to New York City, it's like the entire thing is like covered with like red with yellow stars at this point, because it is like a datum of all the places where I needed to go for briefings and meetings.
I do that too. I pin all the places I have to
go
back to. Yeah.
And so it's fun to say, oh, that's right. There was that great Korean place that's right near Penn Station, and it's open 24 hours. Great. I'll get some bibimbap before I go home. And so, yeah, if
I
Apple
just
needs
let
to be
Google
able to
track my every move, and that way I don't have to pin anything.
Yeah, it's. I think like Renee and I have talked about this, and it really is like, it is the transaction, it is the deal that if you enter into this covenant with Google willingly, and you know what you're giving up, but you decide that what you're giving up is worth what you think you're getting back, that's great. A lot of people are going to say, I would much rather go with services that aren't maybe quite so brilliant at Apple, because I feel as though I'm paying much less of things that I really value in this day and age. So I feel as though my transaction with Google is okay. Also, if I'm going to do it, rather than doing small deals with 8 different devils, I would like to do one big deal with one big devil. Like Google, if I trust Google with my data, I trust they're going to keep it secure from other people who might monetize them before they can monetize it. But it also means that it'll be the same stuff I'm giving them will be used to power a lot of different services, as opposed to, again, having to give it to 7 different places to get 7 different kinds of different tools.
At this point, I'm
angry
happy
today
with
about Google Maps, though. Like because Google changed some policy about retention of location data, and now a bunch of people this week are super salty about Google Maps because they're going to refuse to forget where you are.
Yeah, Google Maps doesn't. It's not very complicated for me. It's like, well, he's at home a lot, and he's at Whole Foods, Bevmo, the full service place, and the office, and then there's like 5 places. And he goes back and forth.
It was actually very depressing during COVID, because my Google Maps got very uninteresting.
Here's your monthly report. Like, okay,
mine's like a little
oh wow,
star.
that's right. There's the time that I walked 2.5 miles.
Data for months. Zero cellular data for
months.
months.
Let's take a little bit of a break here. Andy Yanako, Renee Ritchie, Alex Lindsay. The Mac Break Weekly team is in the house and on fire. Our show today brought to you quite literally by CacheFly. CacheFly is our content delivery network. They've been in the business since 1999. We've been using them for more than a decade. They've been fantastic, and now they're offering something extra special, ultra-low latency streaming. This is not the WebRTC solution that's let you down in the past. Stream delays, when I talk about ultra-low latency, are less than 1 second. But there are more perks. You can play anywhere. They have a great HTML5 player with an SDK, which means you can run it anywhere you want, websites, applications, even mobile devices, any other platform. Because CacheFly has over 50 points of presence all over the world, they're the fastest CDN for throughput globally. And with that low latency network, your video streams will be streaming quickly anywhere you have viewers, no matter what continent they're on. And man, does it scale. More than 1 million users concurrently. Ultra low latency to more than 1 million users concurrently. It can ingest thousands of synchronous streams. Their platform's designed for transmuxing thousands of streams simultaneously. With live failover, they can ingest RTMP, RTMP-S, SRT, and more to deliver ultra-low latency SLDP and HLS streams at the same time. And as always with CacheFly, they will tailor a solution to your usage, your needs, built on top of their most robust, reliable global network with ingest and delivery wherever you need it. And the support people, we love them at CacheFly, are there 24/7, 365 days a year. Priority support, so they're always there when you need them. Amazing. 1 million concurrent streams And because of their reliable throughput and scalability, up to 5 times faster than other CDNs. In fact, it's the world's most reliable CDN, backed by a 100% SLA. Forget how many nines, it's 100%. CacheFly's a great partner, too, in the world. They've been donating to World Central Kitchen during COVID, and they've served warm meals, which is really great. CacheFly, pioneers in the business. They pioneered the first Anycast CDN infrastructure in 2002. Their best hop technology automatically finds the fastest route to and from customer origin across their global network of POPs for maximum performance and reliability. I can just tell you, as a happy CacheFly customer, they're the best. You want to know if CacheFly can save you money? You want to know what kind of things CacheFly can do to match your usage and needs? Go to twit.cachefly.com for a complimentary detailed analysis of your current CDN bill and usage trends. See if you're overpaying 20% or more for a CDN. Twit.cachefly.com. Twit.cachefly.com. We thank them so much for their support. For delivering Mac Break Weekly each and every week to your device. Thank you, CacheFly. Good job. Smartwatch market, according to Counterpoint, the analysts, Counterpoint Research, grew 27% year over year. The COVID downturn has turned around. Big growth, of course, for Apple, but also for Samsung. Even Garmin recorded its highest shipments ever during this most recent quarter. Apple Watch user base. Apple doesn't say the numbers, but Counterpoint says 100 million Apple Watches in use right now. They're number one easily. I
don't see other smartwatches.
I see a lot of Fitbits.
I was going to say, I see Fitbits. Fitbits I see every once in a while.
That's Google now, so. And, Fitbits I see almost as much as I see Apple Watches. So, actually, the number one smartwatch platform, according to, again, this is, nobody gives these numbers, so this is Counterpoint's analysis. 28% Apple, 9% Huawei, 7% Samsung, 6% Emu, I don't know who they are, 5.8 to Garmin, and the rest.
And all of those are usually Apple seems to own the space of, I want a fashionable watch that has lots and lots of digital features on it. There just doesn't seem to be any competition for it whatsoever. When you look at each one of those extra sections of the pie, you're looking at Garmin that kind of owns the space for, I'm doing extreme sports where I need accurate GPS and elevation. Exactly. Fitbit, which is owning the space
casual
of, I don't actually need a $250 watch.
Right.
I actually just want something that counts steps and occasionally passes along a text message. What Apple has done is, it might be insurmountable by any competitor. Certainly doesn't look like it's going to happen from Google. They don't seem to have their act together.
I just got this Galaxy smartwatch, this Galaxy 4. It's 90. I'm showing it to nobody. Sorry, there it is. It's over here. The 90% of what the Apple Watch will do, and it's round, which I like. I think it's pretty good. It's the same thing with the Samsung phones. It's like it's a credible alternative, but
it is. But my issue with it has always been that I just don't like the Samsung ecosystem that they throw you into. Like you can't get the Siri. You can't get the Google Assistant on it. You can get Google Apps on it, but you have to install them on the thing. You can't set it up without setting up a whole bunch of Samsung accounts.
By the way, you can't have the voice assistant be Google. No.
Oh, so, okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey Google.
Oh no, I mean on the Samsung Watch.
Yeah,
not on the phone.
I don't know about the watch. On the phone, you can.
But Bixby is your friend.
I hate freaking Bixby.
He was great at an Incredible Hulk. He brought a passion and emotion to the human side of that monster that none thought
Viv had so much promise.
How often do you use a smart assistant on your watch, though? Is that
loads?
Loads.
I use it for cooking a lot.
Timers. Yeah.
Well, not only that, but when you think about like what I've always been. He says holding up a bare wrist.
A very hirsute Wolverine-esque bare wrist.
Well, exactly. It's winter, so of course I've got the fur gloves on. But I've always been a proponent of the idea that the wristwatch, that kind of a wearable, it isn't something you should be spending any amount of time interacting with. It's there for, just like traditionally for 100 years, it's there so that we can raise our wrist, glance at it, and get the one piece of information we need, which historically has just been the time and maybe the date. And that should be, I think, the role of these watches. There's been so many times where back when I was a daily wearer of the Moto 360, and back when I was, and every time that I've been testing Apple Watches for any length of time, what I use it a lot for, beyond setting kitchen timers, is just simply accessing the voice assistant to simply say, "Oh, I'm taking my walk," and I say, take a note. I should look into this topic for next week or whatever, and then just simply gives me confirmation that I can continue going on without having stopped. I think it really is a great point of access. It's the other reason why I think that every Apple, Google, everybody could really clean up by giving you the earpiece that just does nothing but gives you access to that voice assistant, so that it can just be your audio, that ghost that follows you around, that just simply is helpful to you at all times.
So you can, by the way, now that Samsung has Wear OS, you can get the Google Assistant on the watch. You may have to add an application, but it is Wear OS.
Again, you have to install a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a problem with Google Fit being like the default fitness app. It still wants to use Samsung Fit, and maybe it will let you, right? So that's why Samsung. I think they're great. I just don't. They're not the people I want to make that deal with the devil with. Right. I don't necessarily not trust them. It's just that I don't want to give a second copy of information to Samsung that I'm already giving to Google. I want Samsung to deal with the apps that I'm using from Google.
Right.
I will say that I also think that Apple Fitness is a pretty amazing way to market a watch, because you have to have the watch to do Apple Fitness, and Apple Fitness is the best video fitness ever made. like as a video producer, like as I look at stuff that I make, it's like really high quality and really well done and really thought out, and at a higher level than I've seen. And I've done a lot of video fitness, and it's it's really, really well done, and even my wife was like,
which workout do you do? Which one do you do?
I mix it up. I do some of the HIIT stuff. I've done yoga. I've done, that's the great thing about it, is there's all this stuff, and you have different people and different kinds of music, and you kind of bounce around, and it's really, really well done. And I just do it usually with my iPhone or my iPad, in the garage.
It's the end of the month, and I need 45 MEP points to make it to the bronze level in my fitness app. So I'll be doing that tonight. So and I'll work out until I get those 45 points. And then it's terrible, but I guess it's good, because it encourages you to work out a lot at the end of the month. Let's see. Hey, I'm excited about this. Apple acquired Primephonic. Yay. Andy and I are Primephonic subscribers. Yeah, we hope.
So then, are you excited?
Well, yeah, because I may not have to pay a separate fee for Primephonic. I'm hoping Apple
cautiously pessimistic.
Cautiously pessimistic. No, optimistic.
I too am optimistic, because if given that the big bullet point in the press release was that not just we've bought Primephonic, but also we promise we are going to be releasing a classical music specific app.
We should explain
for devices.
We should explain. So Primephonic is a very, very, very good streaming classical service, which has high resolution, great search. It's hard. It turns out it's hard to do a classical service, but they do a great job.
It's so many problems. But no, you start off with the fact that a lot of the really great classical recordings, they're just not part of the catalogs that get put onto streaming. I mean, Spotify and Apple Music are great. They've got there's so many times I've searched for something and been a little bit surprised to find it, because here is a mezzo soprano that has recorded exactly one album for a very, very small publisher, and boom, they've got both of them. But there's lots of stuff on publishers that just don't reach the streaming platforms. But the biggest thing is that it's just such a specific set of needs to be listening to.
Well, you've got, instead of artist, you have composer, and then you have the artist as a separate field, and that's just not the way it is in pop music. And
it's like 4 or 5 dimensions. When I was reading about this, I immediately thought about one of my favorite opera albums, and it's like the number I've got it on my Plex server, And sometimes I wind up playing it because I think, ooh, I want to hear some Joyce DiDonato. Sometimes I play it because I want to listen to an album by this wonderful orchestra that plays only Baroque music and only on period instruments. Sometimes Handel is my jam. And the thing is, you have to the app that helps you find these things has to understand what you're looking for and why you're looking for it. Otherwise, you wind up saying, "Oh, well, I couldn't find it because it was listed under Mozart." Well, I'm not it's like I wasn't looking for Mozart. I was looking for this particular, not only this particular performer, but this particular performance. It's like sometimes you feel like I joked about this on Twitter the other day that sometimes it's not this bad, but sometimes when you're using Spotify or Apple Music, you feel like you're saying, "Hi, do you have any opera?" And you type into the searches, "Ooh, we've got loads of opera. We've got Nessun Dorma by the Three Tenors and that little girl who was on America's Got Talent. Oh, and here is some 70s soft rock music that our algorithm says that people who look for opera would much rather listen to instead." I mean, so it's a different experience. Yeah, exactly.
So this is the bad news is Primephonic is going to be taken offline September 7th, which is pissing the hell out of me. It will no longer be available for new subscribers. My subscription goes through the end of March, unfortunately. Apple Music is going to, according to Apple, this is from their press release, launch a dedicated classical music app next year, combining Primephonic's classical user interface with added features. Now, it's interesting. They're not just going to roll it into Apple Music. They're going to have a separate app.
I find it fascinating that they didn't just leave it on.
It pisses the hell out of me. So I'm going to get 6 months of Apple Music for free, but I'm already paying for Apple One.
Rights expire at when it's sold. A lot of companies have it expressly written in that if you sell it, you lose the rights, and then they have to renegotiate.
Oh, so it's a musical rights issue. Yeah,
maybe
it could be.
Maybe
That's happened before.
It's also interesting that it happens at the beginning of September. So like before an event,
right.
And so.
But Apple themselves say it won't be till next year before their app is available.
Yeah. Right. We just don't know what's going to happen in September. Yeah. But the other thing is that there's a real opportunity in classical to do some interesting things with spatial audio you see a little bit of, but you're
absolutely right. Apple, I think there's something that Apple can do that this original company couldn't do, which is they got enough money to really put money into the creation or the publishing of recordings that have been just locked away in some vaults. There's another soprano that I just heard about that is apparently becoming really, really big on the international circuit, and they immediately and this article says, "Oh, everyone talks about how wonderful her 2009 performance in Papeo was for the Royal Opera Company, Royal Opera House." And I'm like, "Oh, that's great!" And of course, you can go on YouTube and you can find clips of it because it was streamed at one point, and of course they recorded it and they filmed it, but it's not commercially available, or rather, it might be on DVD. I can't remember whether it was on DVD or not. But here's something that's been recorded, but it's not necessarily available as an audio track that you can stream. Apple might have the ability to approach to cut deals with all these international opera companies and say, "Look, Joyce DiDonato has a new CD coming out in March. As part of the promotion of it, we would love if we could get the Metropolitan Opera's recording of her in Agrippina in 2017, in 2020 as part of our library too. Here is a bucket of money. Can you make it happen?" So this is why I did hear from a lot of people on Twitter who were like very, very pessimistic, but I had to remind myself and them that there is definitely a possible alternate future reality in which Apple ruins it. There's also a possibility in which this service would be running perfectly for 2 years and then go completely out of business because it's an extremely niche sort of product. So you have to kind of be optimistic here. I'm just glad that it's being taken care of.
I mean, we talk a lot about things Apple should buy. The Primephonic was never on my radar as something Apple should buy.
Has nobody said Taylor Swift should just remaster the whole thing? It's not on the table.
And I have yet to receive an email from Primephonic, although people are saying Primephonic is offering refunds. I haven't received that email.
I think that Apple is also offering an extension of Apple Music subscriptions.
Yeah, but I'm already paying for
unpaid.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do I get? I've got Apple One. I'm paying for all that stuff. So I don't know if that's of any benefit. I'm going to see if I can get a refund, I guess. I'm disappointed. I have to say.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to find out. I mean, it does show exactly how. Don't want to call it cutthroat, but the competition between music streaming platforms is that it's one thing when Apple is so concerned about competition that they did the most desperate and heinous act you can contemplate inside the Apple campus, which is create an Android version of this Apple product. They had to create an Android version of Apple Music, and they're also in the position where it's because so many of these services have mostly the same catalogs, certainly not 100%, but most of the stuff that anybody is ever going to want to find, they'll be able to find. You have to differentiate somehow. And oh my goodness, the way to if you're going to be able to say that we are the best music streaming library for classical, you're going to get a whole bunch of people who might have been indifferent to any particular selection of a streaming service. These are the people who are going to just jump right onto Apple Music immediately. It certainly would have gotten my attention if I weren't already a Primephonic subscriber.
Yeah.
My understanding is that they did the Apple Music Android version. The winning argument for that was because family plans would be a really hard sell if you had a mixed family. If some family members had Android phones and some had iPhones, it would just disqualify you from those. And I think that was a smart and savvy move. What I still want to know is how the poor person in Cupertino who's in charge of programming the Tizen app for TV Plus feels every day going to work. Because that must be like, there's a few jobs inside Apple where you get leered at in the cafeteria, and I'm guessing that's probably one of them.
You got to have like a old woman in a gray robe banging a gong saying "unclean shame clang" as the Tizen developers walk into the Apple cafeteria. Shame clang.
They do say that there will be some new classical music features in Apple Music, so I'll look forward to seeing those, including they're going to solve some of these issues by being able to browse and search by composer, by repertoire, detailed display of classical music metadata, plus new features and benefits. And Primephonic had great playlists. They had a wonderful podcast too.
Yeah, exactly. Curation is a really, really great thing. I'll wind down, but the simplest thing is just simply like there's so many times where even on a streaming service, I'll be playing like an opera, and because they've screwed up the metadata, instead of being able to look at my phone and see what track I'm playing, it thinks that the title of this is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, The Abduction from the Seraglio, Act 1, Scene 3. And so it's already used 3 times the amount of space that's on the phone for track before it tells me, oh, by the way, this is the aria that you're actually hoping to look for at this point. So yeah, if even trying to make this work on Plex is, I've had to redo it 2 or 3 times to find a system that works, and I would even kind of love it if I didn't have to do that on my Plex server, and I can just, here, Apple, have some money. Please solve this problem for me. You are smarter than I am.
What else? Anything else before we get to our picks of the week? I think we covered everything that I had on my list.
There was a really good Mr. Who's the Boss and Marquez Brownlee video today about the 5 ways that consumer electronic companies are trying to force favorable reviews onto media people, which I thought was really, really well done.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, it's like, we're going to give you this gift, and we're going to give you 100 of them to give away to your viewers, and they're all special edition, your version. And then they're like, but then you feel bad saying, here, this product is junk, but we're going to give you 100 of them. Or they like dual embargoes, where it's like, you can only show off the hardware. You can't turn it on for your first video, but you can show off as much of the hardware as you want. You just can't, you really can't turn it on for the first video. And they had or there's a software update coming that'll fix all of this. So like, just don't mention it was really well put together.
Have you also heard about there's a scandal brewing on like SSD component providers?
Yes.
Where they will that an SSD, it's not just like one chip with an interface to the motherboard. There's a controller chip. There are a whole bunch of other subcomponents. So the versions that Samsung and all these other companies release, that they send to like these really, really tech savvy reviewers, because they know they're going to be doing the most intense technical analysis of what they are, what the speeds are, what the throughputs are. So once all those reviews have been done, without changing the product name or the product or changing the price, they'll switch to cheaper controllers and cheaper components so that they run noticeably slower to like benchmarkers. And it's like it's almost becoming a virus where
how could you expect not to get caught though? I mean, come on.
So
People
Linus
continue to
Linus had a really good breakdown on that where he went over like they have sometimes the chips aren't available anymore. Like there's a big chip shortage and they can't get them, but they don't say they can't get them. They just swap in another part that has a smaller cache, and when the cache overruns, the write speed drops by like half or a quarter or an eighth, and they don't say anything because it's still like for like 50% of people will never notice, but the other 50% are going to be really cheesed off.
Yeah. It really is like when the cereal company like puts less cereal in your Cheerios box, but the box is still the same size. It's like you're there's no way you would notice that the change had been made unless you are investigating this specifically.
But don't forget that Cheerios are sold by weight, not by volume. Okay,
true.
So when the box is only half full.
By the way, you're paying for the hole in the middle of the Cheerio. That's how they get you, these corporate bastards. That's why I buy Kicks instead. Like there's no hole. I get nothing but pure oat goodness.
100% cereal. Apple has seeded iOS 15 beta 7, so that means we're getting close to iOS 15. Oh, I'm sorry, beta 8. 8th beta. That's only a week after the 7th came out, so nothing particular to say about it. Anything on updates on Mac OS, iPad OS, Renee? Anything you're seeing in your beta testing?
I downloaded it and installed it before the show, but I wasn't able to go through it before the show. But if the event is close, like we think it is, that's usually when they announce the Gold Master.
Yeah.
And then it comes out 1 or 2 days. In our worst nightmares, just as reviewers, they say it's coming out tomorrow, which they have done on, I think, 1 or 2 occasions. But usually it's like it'll be out next week, a couple days before the new phones.
Right.
And they also announced because we haven't seen all of it. We never see all of it. There's always like a few features that are dependent on the new hardware. Like this year it might be, they're talking about bokeh video, like portrait mode video, which they're calling cinematic, which will have the same depth effects applied to it. And ProRes, I think it's 422 LT for recording video, and there's going to be a bunch of stuff that's built in to take part of all that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that final version actually contains.
WatchOS Beta 8 also out today. Invite Watch begins now. If Apple's going to have an event on the 8th, you'll get an invite by a week before.
Do it physically.
It's virtual though, so yeah.
So do invites for virtual events sometimes come the day before?
No,
don't they give you a week
before just so people can make plans.
Yeah,
but I figure whenever Jim Dalrymple goes for lunch, they'll send out the invite. That'll be going for lunch.
So Invite Watch begins now and will continue through next week. If they're going to do an event on the 8th, we'll probably hear about it tomorrow. If not, odds are it'll be a week from tomorrow.
They still, even though people aren't going to be flying to Cupertino for an event, they still have to give a lot of people a lot of advance notice so they can prepare their editorial calendar.
I got to do my
clear the decks for all the content.
My finger warm-ups for typing fast, all that stuff. Got to get ready.
Got to get my hip waders clean for all the BS that's going to be piling up through my Ethernet while I'm streaming this thing.
All right, let's take a little time out to take a breath as we get ready. Our picks of the week are next. Mac Break Weekly, Andy Inako, Renee Ritchie, Alex Lindsay. I think I want to start with you today, Andy Inako. I don't know why. Okay. I feel like you should start.
Yeah, I'm guessing why. I called an audible since we're talking about like Google Maps. There are some people who have created the New England apple cider donut map, and they update it every like August. And it is a marked up map showing all the different like farm stands and different places that make their own apple cider donuts.
I grew up in Rhode Island, as you know. I have never had an apple cider donut. What strange new thing is this, or am I going to have to fly east?
Oh my God, I find it hard to believe. Every time I go to a farmer's market, even if it's like the one that's in Copley Square in downtown Boston, I look for the stand that has little pint bottles of apple cider, fresh pressed, and apple cider donuts that they make. It is like the sweetener that they use inside the cake.
I'm telling you, it sounds mighty good. Do not, however, consider yourself an apple cider donut aficionado if you eat the apple cider donut Oreos. God. The cider donateur, who is a reviewer, official reviewer on Instagram of apple cider donuts, says it tastes like a candle.
Yeah, I have never had an apple cider donut that I've enjoyed that tasted like a candle. Not even an apple cider donut.
Look at some of these apple cider donuts. I think you're gonna see the desire.
This is the power of Google Maps, where it's like, maybe you're not saying, "Oh, you know what we're going to do this weekend, honey? We're going to do a tour of apple cider donut places." It's more like, damn it, I got to get my license renewed. Gee, I wonder if there's a farm stand near the DMV that sells apple. Oh, there is one. Okay, great. I know what I'm doing afterwards.
Quite a few apple cider donut stands out there. Wow. I don't know how I missed this. I'm thinking I moved out of New England in 1971. Maybe this is something relatively new. I don't know.
I'll have to mail you some. Just like Renee is your bagel source. I will be your apple cider donut.
Renee's never mailed me a Montreal bagel, but you know what?
I have tried, and they go bad before they.
Yeah, I think they'd be moldy. I don't think it's worth it. I think what I'm going to have to do is fly out to see my mom, get an apple cider. I'm just wondering if near Cranston there are. It looks like I'll be all right there. There are some apples.
You're covered.
I'm going to go to Jaswell's Farm and get some apple. Or maybe I'll go to the Apple Land Orchard LLC, or perhaps a visit to Dame Farms and Orchards in Johnston, Rhode Island. Yeah. Just down the road from my mom. Okay, just something I'm just checking. That might be a good reason to see your mother is an apple cider donut. And clam cakes. And lobster roll. And a visit to Indianaco.
White chowder.
And perhaps, and white chowder. Not the red stuff.
And Leo, I wouldn't want you to eat alone.
And perhaps then a little jaunt up north to get a Montreal bagel. And they may even be apple cider stands up there. Who knows? We're going north.
Americans can get in, but Canadians can't get out.
There's Sugarloaf. Apparently, you know what? That's interesting. The apple cider bagels pretty much stop before you get to Maine.
Well, it's crowdsourced, so I'm sure it's like the people who are populating this aren't necessarily. Yeah. They're not bold explorers who are who are marching through the swamps of the Arcadia forest.
On the other hand, if I go up the I-22 or the I-9 there, I can on my way to Montreal stop off and get an apple cider bagel at Hackett's Orchards in South Hero, Vermont. So
donuts, but yes.
Oh, it's a donut? What did I say? Bagel? No, that would be bad. Do not. No,
actually, if anything can restore the unity and friendship between our two nations, it would probably be the apple cider bagel.
But I will not eat the Yankee Candle flavored Oreos. Stop right there. Okay, there it is. How do you get this? You have to go.
It's just a Google Maps link. Just click the link and you're there.
He's on Instagram. He's the cider, CIDER, cider donateur.
Doesn't this make you so happy about what the internet is? That there's so many people that they are the person to know about this one thing because this is their favorite thing in the world. You don't want to talk to anybody else because they got this thing on lock, and now with the internet, this information doesn't die with them. It's just they get to publish it, and now we all get to benefit from it.
He's actually a Cambridge, Massachusetts video game developer who has spawned a cider donut renaissance. So we can thank him, and his link, by the way, on his Instagram feed to the map.
I don't want to make you feel bad, but the deli that's across the street from me, there is an amazing donut place like in East Greenwich that opened up just a couple years ago, and they're just phenomenal. And so it's a bit of a stretch for me to drive out there or ride out there just to get donuts, but the deli across the street gets like a couple of racks of them like on the weekends. And so I know I can tell the changing of the seasons from when they go from the blueberry basil donut to the cider donuts that start to.
So I have to say, the cider donut tour is apparently flipping off the Entenmann's version of these apple cider bagels.
Well,
so
there you go. Yeah,
don't pick those up. And let's see what he says about Dunkin'. He says, I don't want to incite a religious war, describing in detail the dry, cold, stale donut that I received at my local Dunkin' today. It sounds like it's not exactly a recommendation.
But it's for Dunkin'. But people don't understand about Dunkin' Donuts is that it's not designed to be the best donut you can possibly get. It's reliable. It is a provider of those sugars and carbs that you decide that you absolutely needed with a good cup of coffee in the morning while you're trying to get your commuter rail train.
I like his reviews.
It's a service.
Here's one from Bolton Orchards. Bolton effing Orchards.
Yes.
I'm at a loss for words. I tried to use my words and write up a review, but I don't think I can do this one justice.
The picture depicts like a foam cup with like some sort of like ice cream foam
soft serve thing, caramel
with a beautifully crystalline sugar coated soft cake cider donut bobbing on the top of it.
Says, you've bested me, Bolton, but I'll be back. You'll see. All right, Andy, I think you win this week's pick of the weeks, but let's see. We haven't heard from everybody. This month, maybe. Let's. What do you got, Renee Ritchie? We'll go to Renee and then Alex.
So I thought for sure we'd pick this already, but I went back and looked, and it looks like we didn't really mention it when it came out. Maybe we did it as a news story, but I was playing with it again over the weekend just because I was going through a few months later what was my iPad really doing, and Halide for iPad is just. It's not intuitive because some people make fun of people shooting, with iPads. It looks like old days of cameras when you throw a sheet over your back and say, don't wait, and you take that big flash photo. But it just goes to show what people like, Sebastian and Ben and Rebecca can really do on that big canvas when you give them that opportunity. Or for people like Andy,
it's not as good as Sensor, though, right? I mean, but Halide is the best camera app for the iPhone.
It's so good. Or I was thinking like people like Andy who don't have a current iPhone but have a current iPad,
right?
And the ability to unlock just everything that Apple can do with its different, like its depth APIs and raw APIs and all of these different things, and just having that big canvas to work on. I was sort of brainstorming with them, and we got to get Alex Lindsay involved on this too, because very soon I want to be able to take a photo or take a video and upload it to Instagram or TikTok or YouTube and have it just auto-conform to the aspect ratio, vertical or horizontal. I don't want to have to think about that when I'm shooting. Just capture a bigger frame, use machine learning to center me in it, and then post it for me so I can go to every platform. And I think it's apps and intelligences like these, like the thoughtful application of machine learning and computer vision to really good capture mechanics that are going to get us there.
Yeah. Also, Halide is just a joy of an app. It is everything that I miss about having Android as my primary phone. The ability for someone who absolutely knows, a team that absolutely knows what they want to achieve and wants to go beyond what they were able to just put onto a prospectus and achieve a wonderful app that's beautiful but powerful. You just kind of want to stand up and applaud. And I admit that I kind of look stupid taking pictures with I actually have the 12.9-inch iPad Pro.
Oh, me too. Man, I love it.
But yeah, exactly. Because isn't that great? It's such a weird thing because, you're used to holding up a phone or even holding up a digital camera and seeing this little screen that comes across to you as a viewfinder. But it's like I am seeing on this screen the 8x10 color glossy photograph that I will have if I just push this button, as opposed to it's not a viewfinder. It is this is the photo that you can keep.
And if you bought a small HD monitor of that quality, it'd be $2,000 to stick on your camera.
Exactly. I'm telling you, I'm sorry, I won't hijack this, but I will just say that I have been so pleased by my purchase of the new M1 12.9-inch iPad Pro. But as I thought, I was hoping that part of the joy of it, and part of the justification for it would be processing and editing photos on it, and it has absolutely come through on that too. And part of it is I am looking at I've got in my lap an 8x10 color glossy picture that will respond to whatever will I impose upon it, and I'm having so much fun going back even to old pictures I've taken and reprocessing them on the thing. It is one hell of a great device.
Yeah, it is made for that. I agree with you 100%. Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
So I use a lot of in-ear monitors. So I have lots and lots of them. I don't like to have over the ear, and so I have in-ears, and I've been using them for years. And I started with autos, and I've had audio implements, which are good. They're kind of the broadcast standard. Ear Heroes, which are kind of security standard, because they're really, low profile. And those have all been great. Right now I'm using, these are Bumblebee. They're these sidekicks, and they are the best so far. So these are number one is if you're looking for low profile, if you can see the video that we're doing, hair thin. Like it is
because
like
it's not a tube anymore. It used to be
Right.
on a lot of the IFBs. This driver is at the other end, plugged into the box,
Right.
and they
And
have
so
to
these
send
are-
a sound tube into your ear, which makes it thick.
Yeah.
This doesn't do that.
And so this is just this
The
tiny
driver's
little
in the
wire
Bumblebee. Yeah,
and goes into it.
Yeah.
It is so comfortable. Like it is the
that's
most
a better way to do it. I've always
it
wondered why they did those air tubes. That seemed like, I guess they don't want to have a big driver in your ear.
Back then, when they got created, when Audio Implements was making those, you couldn't make something so
Right.
small in
Right.
years. The Audio Implements have been the standard for forever. And then Auto makes them. They're cheaper to make that way too. I mean, remember the Audio Implements is $129. These Sidekicks I think are like $300 or $300.
Okay.
And so, so they're not cheap, but the audio quality. So Ear Heroes was the other one that's in between, and it's like $150, and they're great. And I got those. I mean, what a lot of guys in Secret Service use. So anyway, so I had a conversation with one of them. I walked up to him at an event, and I was like, "Can I ask you a question?" He put his hand under his jacket, and he goes, "Yeah, sure."
Ask. Yeah, go ahead, take your chances. Ask.
I put my hands up and I said,
No.
What earpiece do you use? And then he goes, pulls his hand out and he goes, oh, I just use Ear Heroes. They're really good. And so anyway, it was, I've used those for quite some time and they're good. The quality of the Sidekicks is just way higher and the comfort is way higher. And even the cable is a little nicer. And of course it costs more money. But it's if you're looking for something that, especially now that a lot of us are spending, I spend a lot of time on Zoom, and you kind of want to have a more natural look and not have things over your ears, and you need something that's going to be comfortable. Because I find that with the other ones, I'm constantly kind of pulling them out and pushing them in, pulling them out and pushing them in. If these were wireless, I could probably leave them in all day.
Yeah,
like I
they're
wouldn't.
so light. Yeah.
Well, they're light, and again, the Ear Heroes, even then, they're nice, but that I didn't feel like they were like. I mean, there was a little bit of like, oh, I'm moving.
So you're
around
saying
a
the
little bit.
audio fidelity is very good on these.
Auto fidelity is really high on these, as well as the comfort. The way that they built these little cones,
weird
that go in,
cones. Yeah.
it's super comfortable, and just really easy to leave in there for a long time. So I just wish I had I got to figure out like a little wireless pack to put on.
So you're not a fan of the molded, in-ear. I mean, that's what I'm wearing. Is it molded?
I think that they're fine. These are just lighter weight. They're lighter weight.
Yeah.
They're smaller.
I wouldn't want to wear these all day. Yeah, and also you can't hear anything.
Yeah, and I can hear a little bit. I have the ones that seal because I don't like to. I just like to be what I'm doing. But there's other Bumblebee inserts that are perforated, so that you can hear around you as well. People who use them for security use it that way.
Right. Yeah, because you want to hear what's going on, obviously. When somebody comes up to you and asks you questions, you want to be able to reach for your piece. But these are more for musicians who don't want to get any additional audio coming in. They want to seal their ear off.
Yeah. And I've never. I mean, I have ones that I've molded in, and I've just never found them as comfortable as I wanted them to be.
No.
And they work well, and they do what they're supposed to do.
Well, the auto fidelity is fantastic because these are for musicians.
And it's higher. I will say that the in-ear, the molded in-ear is higher than the Sidekicks.
Okay.
But the Sidekicks, as a low-profile, non-molded, really comfortable.
Plus, in a studio, other people can use them. It doesn't, you can share. You don't have.
I wouldn't. I still worry we wouldn't.
Still goes pretty deep in the canal there.
I don't think I would share them.
You can get the spares. You can get spare earpieces. Pop them off.
But they're nice because again, it doesn't unless you turn or unless you pull something out, you just don't notice that.
I love how thin that is. Yeah.
Super high, super low profile.
Yeah. Love that. Bubble. I love the name. I know Bumblebee. B-U-B-B-L-E.
They have a lot of products. I mean, I haven't used any of the other ones, but the quality build is very high.
BumblebeeIndustries.com. Did we do Renee's pick yet?
No.
Yes, Halide.
Oh, Halide, that's right.
Oh, Halide, sorry.
So I'm going to do my pick, which is the Ploopy trackball.
What is that again, Liam?
Not a great name. Okay.
No.
But I'm listening.
And I'm actually wondering how good. So I was mentioning that I have decided to make this open source. They make mouses and trackballs. I would get a mouse, but they don't make ambidextrous ones. They're for righties. But the Ploopy Classic trackball, unfortunately, as you can see, it looks like it's 3D printed from PLA. And when I ordered it, foolish me, I ordered the kit. So I'm going to have to, but at least see left-handed availability. So I ordered the left-handed kit. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of soldering. And it's expensive, but it's open source. So you see, I'm putting my money where my DIY mouth is. And I guess because it's open source, it's completely repairable for that reason. And you can choose different colors. I got the Magic 8 ball for the for the ball itself. But I guess we're going to do an event for the Club Twit on me attempting to put this together. Not cheap. It's Canadian, so it costs a little bit extra. I think it's 139 to 157 Canadian dollars.
Because of the early harvest.
Yes,
I understand.
Yes, that's right. They have an earlier harvest, which changes everything. And then I'm going to need a recommendation for a good soldering iron.
Weller.
Oh, I've totally got one for you.
What is it?
Weller.
I have to find. I'll send the information to you. But I bought a soldering iron last year that plugs into USB, but it's like tiny pencil size, and it has an OLED display for setting the temperature. Super heats up super quickly. Really easy to use. It's one of my favorite. I have one of those like soldering stations that I've had for like 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I need. Yeah.
Well, I stopped using that because like, oh well, this is also a variable temperature and it's a lot more fun to use. And
it seems
also,
like Weller is just like the default, though. I mean, isn't there something better than Weller out there? What, you don't know what the brand name of yours is? Andy?
Hang on, I'm looking for it.
Not like it's a growth market.
Yeah, that's true.
But everybody has Weller. I mean,
if we disrupt the soldering market, we're going to blow the doors off. We're going to be able to retire
well,
when
the
we're
good
90.
news is they're not hugely expensive. I'm willing to pay more for a better soldering iron.
The Wellers, the Weller, I think the 1010s, I think, are the ones that I usually have.
Yeah, 1010 NA digital soldering station. Amazon has it available for. Why am I getting that message every time I click that? I can get it. I can get it probably tomorrow. Ooh, 109.
Yeah, I think it's the TS80P USB-C smart soldering iron.
Ooh, USB-C. Ooh, you don't have to plug it into the wall. Huh?
Exactly.
Oh, do I need the 5-piece kit, the 5-piece kit with cleaner, or the 8-piece kit?
You definitely want to stand unless you're a big fan of immolation.
The cleaner and the
I need the 8-piece kit. I need the clips, the flux. While
you're at, you also need like the pencil air gun so that you can like reball, like pick and place NAND and CPUs.
I'll tell Lisa, I'm sorry, I can't have dinner tonight. I have to reball my Ploopy. And she'll completely understand.
She'll ask you if you're having a stroke.
Anyway, stay tuned.
Those are words, Leo, but they don't mean anything in the order in which you're sequencing them.
My Ploopy is on the way. And
just like, Leo, who's president?
The funny thing is that
reballing the Ploopy.
Your Ploopy's coming, but then you're going to have the soldering iron. And when you have the soldering iron, you're going to have one of those desk-mounted magnifying lamps.
Oh, I need that.
You also need one of those desktop extraction fans.
An extraction fan, and you're going to need helping hands.
Helping hands. Yeah. I've seen those. Yeah.
So those are, this is just to get basically set up for your Ploopy. This is setting up the environment for your Ploopy. Your Ploopy.
You might want to bring in a newspaper because it might take a while.
It's an open source. It's open source, but it doesn't mean that it's free, and it doesn't mean it doesn't require an environment of proper tooling.
But doesn't that look good? It's going to look like a racing mouse.
Yeah, exactly.
I love trackballs. I wish they hadn't mostly gone away because they're just such a cool thing to have in your desk. Also, when you're looking for the next word to write, just be able to just flick that ball. Makes you feel as though you're actually writing.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this thrilling and gripping edition of MacBreak Weekly. You'll find Alex Lindsay at officehours.global. All the details about what's going on, which is always interesting at office hours. What's coming up?
Tomorrow we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with NAB. We were going to cover it, but we don't know. We're going to figure out how we talk to vendors about their products, within the group.
Office hours is where NAB should happen.
Well, we're going to do some of that. You know, the funny thing is that I think I talked about it last week, but we've gotten to the point now where when we bring a vendor in, we learn so much about their product in 1 hour because it's not one person interviewing them. It's 100 or 200 people asking questions and voting those questions up and you know, all of us thinking about that product for a minute. And that hour is really valuable.
Okay. This is the virtual remotes, virtual insanity, the house band for office hours. I can't even. They did this in real time.
No. This
is later. But they are playing remotely with each other, right?
No, well, it was done over time. So,
okay.
So it was, but it's really good. You should listen. It's
the house band, baby. You can find. So you can find this all.
They have their own band.
They have their remotes. They have their own band. This is all the office hours crew.
Like, the thing is these are really good musicians. Yeah, it's not like we got together and playing. Yeah, it's really, really good stuff. And so it's and we're going to break down. So like Saturday, we're going to talk about how this song got built because it was all recorded remotely. So everybody records their own pieces. It gets all recompiled into Pro Tools. It gets it's anyway, yeah. So it's that was the discussion today about it. But we're going to do a 2-hour discussion later on it, and it's really amazing. You know, we're talking about got into a conversation about.
If you're into this stuff, man, this is like gravy, baby. This is just like.
And now we after hours we. Literally, when I'm not on Twitter or something like that, I'm working. If I don't have to be talking to somebody, I literally just turn it on and play it in the background. I'm just listening to people problem solving, and it's like the ultimate open office. But the office hours themselves, between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. Pacific Standard, is really a more focused. Like we just answer questions one after the other, whatever questions you have around virtual.
I was saying I mentioned this last week. I think you've almost invented a new form of media where you have a presentation and then people in a multiple box. Interacting, doing it, following along, asking questions is so cool. I mean, we're going to try some of that in our Club Twit because it's just the way. In fact, my Ploopy experience will probably be in that format.
What's funny is that I thought that it would be hard. You know, we've always told people don't ever have more than 4 people or 5 people maybe in a panel.
Yeah.
Now, if we get below 12, it's hard. Like, oh, this is really hard. There's only 12 people here because all we're doing is asking questions, and so you have to have the right group of people to answer all those questions, you know. And so you need a lot. But figuring out how that all works is not just technology; it's the people. You know, you have to have, and it's just an amazing group of people that have
officehours.global. Thank you, Alex. Andy Anako, WGBH. When's your next appearance?
Looks like Friday at 1 p.m. You can listen to that live or later at WGBHnews.org.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to have you. Renee Ritchie is at youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. How many videos total now debunking the satellite phone?
I just did one of those, but I think I'm going to do one on people are freaking out that Taiwan Semiconductor raising pricing by 10 to 20% because they underestimated the cost of their new process node is going to somehow make the next, like the iPhone 13, 20 to 40% more expensive. So I want to comment.
Apple already bought all the chips it needs. Believe me, they're ready. I have to go reball my Ploopy, but I will say that this has been Mac Break Weekly. We do this show every Tuesday. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. The Ploopy reballing is shortly after that. You can watch live at twit.tv/live. You or listen live. There's audio and video streams. You can chat live at irc.twit.tv. So this is the reballer, right? Does it suck in the solder here with the... Whoa! They aren't letting me turn this on yet. I'm just practicing. It's
also a blackhead record.
It's cold right now. You can also chat, of course, in our Club Twit Discord. It's always fun to be in there. And we're doing video now in the Discord, which we should have done ages ago, which means it's possible to watch, listen, and chat all at the same time, which is... Goodness gracious, we should have done that ages ago. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Micah Sargent, for suggesting it. You can also get on-demand versions of the show at our website, twit.tv/MBW, so you can listen whenever you want. There's a YouTube channel, all Mac Break Weekly, all the time. They're, of course, your favorite, best way probably is your favorite podcast player. You can get it downloaded and automatically subscribe and get it downloaded, and that way it'll be available whenever you're in the mood. You can just say, play Mac Break Weekly, and there it will be for you. Actually, that also works on all of the voice assistants. You could say, play Mac Break Weekly podcast. You'll get the latest version. I always forget about that, but that's a good way to listen as well. Thank you, everybody, for being here. But I have to say, I'm sad to say, I'm sorry to say, it's time to get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.
If you find yourself talking to those virtual assistants in your house quite often, or maybe you can make your light turn on and off with the touch of a button, well, Smart Tech Today is the show for you. Join Matthew Casanelli and myself, Micah Sargent, every week as we talk all about smart stuff and the fun that comes along with it.